Hello, and welcome to the Game Informer Show. I am your host, Andy McNamara. I am joined today by Brian Shea.
Hello.
Dan Tack.
Hello, everyone.
Alex Stadnick.
Hey, friends. Leo took my camera again, so I'll have to Ben Kenobi Force Ghost this one.
Yeah.
Aww.
Well, maybe in the new year we'll get another camera. Or maybe can we just get a weird image of you that we pop up every time you speak for the YouTube version? I think that would work too.
That sounds good. Yeah. I'll see if I can find
when
something.
the camera's missing, like a weird screaming Alex or Leo head would be probably pretty appropriate.
That'll be good.
So on this week's show, as the new year starts off and games are being delayed and blah, 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 all kinds of stuff, which most notably was Marvel and Final Fantasy, which is just something to kind of quick point out, which we can get back to here in a second. But those things all went down, but we're going to kind of cover some. This is kind of a mosh pit of information essentially right now, and then we're going to follow that up with community emails afterwards. So we're going to cover some WoW. They have the new Visions of N'Zoth that came out as a kind of content update. We have Pokemon has an X-Pack coming, and we're going to look at the PlayStation Back button, talk about that a little bit. And I think and then also we're going to talk a little bit about some general news that I think is worth discussing. So let's start with a quick kind of thing about January. It's the time to delay your games. That's what January is. I think every year it's like, all this stuff is coming, and then it all gets delayed. So the big announcements were that Final Fantasy remake and Marvel's were pushed back. Marvel's all the way to like September.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Probably like right up against that, like right before the new gen is going to hit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think it's not a bad move for Marvel just because there's probably going to be a movie around that time that probably helps them. Right? Because there's no movie short term, right?
Well, there's Black Widow in May.
But
and then we have Eternals, I think, in July?
No, I think
or
it's
August.
November.
Oh, maybe
It
might be
later.
November.
Yeah.
But there's not like
There's always a Marvel movie.
giant slate of Marvel
always,
movies.
yeah.
It's not like last year when we had Endgame.
Yeah, but I mean, there's always something to help promote it, and I think so. I mean, I think everyone was kind of down on that game when they first saw it, but the follow-ups have been pretty positive, or more positive as far as people have gone forward. We don't know
more
yet.
Positive.
What I played-
I think there's still a lot of unease.
There is. I mean, I've played it, and I learned a lot about like the features when I was out at Gamescom, and it plays well for the most part. I think that like Hulk and Black Widow are definitely the most fun ones to play, and Captain America's okay to play as. But like Thor and Iron Man, who I think should probably be the most fun, because like Thor can like throw his hammer like Kratos throws his axe, and like Iron Man's just flying around blasting things. Those should be the most fun, and they were the least fun.
Well,
So
that's good.
I think they could definitely use a little bit more polish time.
Yeah, I mean, I think I say this many times. I'm never mad if someone delays a game.
Mm-hmm.
Make your game better. Fantastic. Have at it. Do it. Right? And that's what Final Fantasy is, and they just need a little more polish because it's only pushing back to April, which isn't that big
just
deal.
a month.
The only thing that's weird about that is it's pushing back towards Cyberpunk, which kind
an
of
onslaught
creates
of games.
a couple of RPGs that are going to take a lot of time right next to each other. I wonder if
I doubt we've seen all the delays that we're going to see. This
Yeah, it's
year.
true.
That's
Do you think I don't think Cyberpunk's going to get delayed. There's no way.
I don't, but I can see it.
Yeah, I could see it too.
I
mean,
wouldn't
it could
bet
happen.
against it, so let's put it that way.
And I wouldn't either. Yeah, not all my money, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I took this string of delays as hope that it wasn't going to, because I feel like it's a string where it's like when celebrities die, when like game dev like releases a delay, they're like, oh,
They're
everyone,
coming threes kind of thing.
But
Is that what you're going with?
The thing you're missing here is that both of those games are Square Enix.
True, touche.
So maybe we'll see another publisher announce some stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the time when delays. I had some like just conversations that I can't announce any of the games, but people were like, "Hey, remember that game we were talking about? Well, it's coming out late." I mean, like there's a lot of games that are going to be delayed.
And it's like it's the year to delay things too, especially if you're going to be on the new platforms.
yeah,
right?
when you talk about the new consoles, which maybe we'll hop around. So that was one of the things I wanted to talk about today was that Matt Booty was talking to MCV, and he's the head of Xbox Game Studios. And what he talked about was that for Xbox Series X, that one of the goals at Microsoft is, at least for first party, and we don't know if this is like a thing that they want to have everybody do.
Yeah.
But as the content, this is the quote: "As our content comes out over the next 2 years, all of our games, sort of like PC, will play up and down the family of devices. We want to make sure that if someone invests in Xbox between now and the Series X, that they feel that they made a good investment and that we're committed to them with content." So that means like Halo, which has been in development forever, is going to be on both platforms, right? It doesn't answer the question if like we buy one for this, if it works on both. But is that cool that they're kind of making games that are, or does that disappoint you in that like you wanted to have like games that really showcase the new platform, and that Microsoft first party games, which is usually first party is usually responsible for, hey, this is how cool this platform can be, right? Because third parties almost always are kind of like, not lowest common denominator, but a common denominator.
Yeah,
right?
Often multi-platform unless there's some sort of exclusivity deal.
Exactly. So the way to showcase new hardware is when the platform holders do it. So does that disappoint you guys that he said this thing? Or you're like, that makes sense. I'm fine with that. I've been on PC where they do this all the time. No big deal. What are your thoughts?
Well, see, Andy, you just hit my perspective there. Like,
Yeah.
I guess it's been interesting to watch the evolution of consoles as they become more and more PC-like and more just everything's everywhere, right? You can it's in the cloud. Just blast it, just download it and play it, and that's it. It's changing. It's been evolving. I got my PC 2 back at home. Maybe we'll get PC 3 one of these years. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I guess it's not a surprise, and I think in the overall sphere of gaming, it's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, the more people that have access to this content, the better, and the lower the cost of entry is, I think that's also better.
It creates variety, yeah.
Yeah, even if it means you're getting an inferior experience. Like take Control, for example. By all indications, if you didn't play that on a PS4 Pro or an Xbox One X, it ran kind of crappy.
Yeah.
But, you still had access to this game, and that I imagine that will be a similar situation for like Series X games that come out, and you're like, oh, I have an Xbox One X, I don't have a Series X yet, but I want to play Halo Infinite. And if you play it on that Xbox One X, maybe it's a worse experience, but you still get access to that without having to drop $400 or $500 for a new console.
Yeah, and we knew that there was going to be a lot of like cross-gen games this year. We never knew if we would be paying for them twice or not, which is the history that typically we buy them on like current gen, and then the new gen comes up, and then we're like, oh, I'll get it again, or it's been remastered, it looks better. I want those kind of things. Microsoft has done things like that with Gears, where they did like patches that would like support better, cards and things like that, like the classic PC style. And I've written about it some in the kind of letter from the editor recently about how like, I feel like this generation we're going to keep getting hardware, but this is definitely the one where the hardware really, I think, starts to mean less.
Yeah.
Where we begin the kind of diminishing returns, in my view, of what hardware is and how it defines things. Now, that said, it is a little disappointing, I think. It's hard for me not to think, like, with some new power, right, I want to see some new bells and whistles, because I bought a pretty good new PC this last year, and I was like, oh, this is going to be great. And it, like, because all the software was kind of, to some degree, the same, I didn't really gain that much. Do you know what I mean? From my 5-year-old PC to my new one, I mean, it's nice to have the extra power, right? Don't get me wrong.
Need it. You'll
end up needing it. But like, I wanted to come home and like turn on games and download games and play them and be like, I am blown away. And it was like, it's a little better.
Yeah,
those shadows are a little bit nicer.
Yeah, and a lot of things like ray tracing and things like that were just not running that well, or when I did run them, the games weren't optimized for some of those things. Right. And so you're kind of like, God, I'm kind of excited for when the consoles come out, because I think that'll make more game companies do stuff with ray tracing and make it more kind of standardized, and for that to highlight the things that my PC can do. But it's weird to have a really nice PC and be waiting for console to complete that change. Do you know what I mean?
And that's really the way it's kind of always been. Like getting console to have the Ultra as the baseline is where we're going.
Yeah.
And then you've got different alternatives and everything it's crazy. It's cool. I think it's cool.
And this whole concept really goes back to Microsoft's core philosophies they spelled out when I was at their spring showcase in 2016, when they were talking about like the implementation of the Universal Windows platform on the Xbox systems. And one of the things I asked, because he was like, oh yeah, it's going to mean that like your accessories will move forward with you, your games will move forward with you. And I asked him like, all right, well, so like compatibility is like the big thing. He's like, yeah, but like not just backwards compatibility, forward compatibility is like the key here.
Thing,
like we want everybody to have as close to like a similar experience as possible, while obviously better hardware will give you better experiences.
Yeah, that certainly plays into like Game Pass and other things like that. Services become a bigger part of our gaming experience, and things like cloud gaming takes over and does some things along the way, at least for the way for some people play, right? That those are all going to change and push towards that. But I did find it interesting once. One of the things comments I see a lot, which I'm like, God, that's silly, but it's not wrong. Which was from some people, they were like, what this means to me is that I won't buy Xbox hardware. I'll buy PlayStation hardware, and I'll play the Xbox software on my PC.
Yeah.
You know that it makes that kind of console market for them. I'm not saying, by the way, they're not reaching gamers. By the way, this is a totally different conversation. I'm just saying it devalues to some degree their console unit itself because so many people, PC's in right now. But I feel like PC's really big.
But there
right
is,
now.
There's that thing that's like, would that PC user have played the game otherwise? Would he have gone and gotten an Xbox just to play the game?
Yeah.
Maybe, but he's definitely going to play it since it's available on his platform.
Yeah, because
inherently.
all of the first-party Microsoft games, for the most part, I can't think of the last one that didn't come to PC, but like they're really pushing that. And you also get like the PC copy if you buy it on Xbox and vice versa.
Yeah, for sure. And I always wonder too. I wonder if in time if Sony will ever make a PC-based way to access their games.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like a Netflix kind of thing, like a service that you go to, the PlayStation experience that you get, and you go there and you can play them on other devices.
And you're definitely thinking of like that's the future, right?
Yeah, I definitely think that's.
I mean, whether you like it or not, I know that it sucks for people who want the old way that it's always been, but like that is inevitability staring you right in the face.
Nintendo will be the last holdout.
And they will still play ball in the end.
Yeah, I mean, they eventually came to mobile, which people said they would never do mobile, and then they came and put some of their games on mobile. And they obviously they've made games very specific to mobile that haven't like tread any on their space. But I mean, I think it's a real challenge going forward. Now that said, I want to make sure people understand that doesn't change that Sony can still make crazy amazing games, and really their worldwide studios, which is top notch, and Nintendo as well, top notch studios, and Microsoft with the games that they're making, which we'll talk about in a second, that they've done such a great job that they can still make great games, and maybe they reach more people, which means they make more money, which enables them to invest more in those games, and maybe makes them better, right? Like hardware doesn't have to be where the battle is. Software can be where the battle is and be better for all of us as gamers, right?
An interesting piece of this entire puzzle for Microsoft is xCloud, which really enables you to play any game on any like device you want. You could play it on your iPhone, you could play it on your PC, and it doesn't really matter about the specs at that point.
It doesn't. Now that said, I think both Stadia and xCloud, which are doing that, they are faced with like Apple's just not going to let them open a store and like start playing on there. I mean, I know it's easy to say, oh, that'll be on iPhone, but I mean, like there are still those very real walled gardens from everyone, right? I mean, Sony wants to have their own store, Epic wants to have their own stores, Valve wants to have its own store, Xbox wants to have its own store, and then like what devices they show up on is going to depend on who lets them onto their devices or won't let them. That's the thing. Like, Apple let Netflix and everybody on there and was like, oh, I don't care, and then now they're trying to make an Apple Netflix, and that makes it where there's a little bit more of a battle there. Now, personally, by the way, I am one who I wish all of them would drop all those things and be like, let the market decide, right? Like whoever, like let whatever the Apple movies be on every device, right? Even on Android devices, right? Let them go everywhere. And I think if that ever happens, that's definitely when the floodgates open and you're definitely 100% services orientated, and hardware means
point,
nothing.
It's all
right?
service.
Yeah, it's all service, and hardware to some degree takes a backseat. You'll still have fancy PCs and stuff like that you want to play on, but like you'll be able to choose your device, not have a device determine what you can play, which would be interesting. So here's one of the things that came up in that conversation is they mentioned that there are 15 internal studios at Microsoft. So my stupid game I came up with, can you guys name the 15?
Okay.
By the way, the reason I asked this question is I went, can I answer this question? Do I know what the 15 are? So it's really hard. If you don't want to, if I've sprung this on these guys, I told them I was going to tell them
a good one.
ahead of time. But do you want to give it a shot?
So Ninja Theory.
Yep. 343.
Okay, hold on. I gotta check them out. I have a list. Okay, so Ninja Theory.
He said 343.
343.
Obsidian.
Obsidian. Okay, yeah.
Playground.
That's correct.
Undead.
Undead. That's correct.
Coalition.
That's correct.
World's Edge, which is
Yep,
the new
the Age of Empires
studio.
Bingo.
What's damn it.
So we have the Coalition.
Psychonauts. Who does Psychonauts?
Double Fine.
Double Fine.
Yep.
The Initiative.
Oh yeah, you're great. You're on fire right now, Shay. By
Well,
the
it
way,
turns out I
he's
went to
Xbox.
London and
I know. Let's
interviewed
see
Phil
what else.
Spencer and Matt Booty.
You've got one really big one you guys are missing, like a huge one, like the very first acquisition.
Mojang.
Oh, okay, that was one. I was actually going go further back.
Further back.
Oh.
Who did they take from another company that was like the biggest news at the time when they bought? You like your steak.
Rare.
Thank you.
Which is the only right answer to that question, by the way.
So, all right, you guys are really close. So we're down to actually a couple of very obvious ones that when I say them, you're going to be like, dope.
Turn 10.
Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm going to keep giving you hints.
I'm a Horizon.
Well, he
The
said
hints were
Playground,
useful.
and I was like, oh, that covers Forza, and then I
Yeah.
completely
Yeah.
forgot Turn 10
I'm a
is a
Horizon
separate
guy.
Yeah. Okay. And then there happens to be they got Obsidian, and maybe they're going to have another.
Oh God, what?
Wait,
It's the
in Exile?
In Exile. I was
Correct.
gonna say it's
There
the
we
Wasteland,
go.
right?
And then I'm gonna give you this last one because this last one's really hard.
No,
which-
don't give it to us.
you don't give it to you.
Yeah,
What about a
we've
hint?
We've been doing really good.
Yeah, you guys are on fire. And by the way, you're at 13, and I'm gonna actually give you one. This last one is the only way I could get to 15 was with Xbox Game Studio Publishing.
Yeah.
So like that one I'm
okay.
giving
That
you
one you
because
can give
like
us.
because that's
Yeah.
like it's not really a name.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a company name, but it is.
Isn't that just the umbrella?
Yeah, that's one annoys me. That's why I kind of felt like the answer was 14. Which, by the way, I didn't spend a whole lot of time on this. I could be wrong. The 15 could be one I missed, but I did kind of look into this quickly, and this seemed right to me.
Give us a hint about the
So we've
last
got
one.
one more?
The last one is an acquisition they did. I'm gonna go with maybe like 3 years ago. It's a small. It was an independent
Small
game.
indie studio, Compulsion?
Yes. Look at
Very
that.
good.
Nice.
But wait. Yeah, Compulsion. Yeah, I was thinking of something else.
You
Never
guys
mind.
did really well. I think. I'm impressed.
I'm impressed. I can't believe we got through it.
I mean, it's the funny thing is you go like they have 14, you're like they have 15 studios, and the first thing in my mind like no they do not, and then when you start looking at this you're like oh yeah they do they have and by the way a lot of these are great studios, right?
Yeah.
So it's
good.
it's a very impressive list, and I think I wanted to the point of this, by the way, wasn't just to torture you guys, which was kind of fun. Was more that like wow. I mean, that's an impressive list. I mean, once Microsoft starts to harness this power and get a really
And you know
great,
when that's going to be.
yeah, exactly.
Hint,
Yeah.
hint.
It'll be at E3, right? I think that's going to be really interesting, and I think that makes the upcoming year really exciting. I mean,
For
because
sure.
that's a lot of developers, and I think the one thing that we have to remember, I think this is an important thing too about the 2 years when we talk about for the next 2 years, the games are going to be they're kind of cross-platforming to some degree, is that games take like 3 to 5 years now, unless you're like Call of Duty and you have these just giant teams
Well,
that you're
you
like
got
rotating.
3 different studios,
Yeah, 3
right?
different studios.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like unless you're like you've made it into like a literally a machine, or like FIFA or Madden, that's like something that like you're designed to come out on a yearly basis. Games take 3 to 5 years. So considering that they're just getting kind of specs, let's say within the last year, you know what I mean, ballpark, not really getting final hardware until just right around now, kind of thing. You know what I mean? So like it makes sense that it's going to take some time to make things that really take advantage of
Right,
that
yeah.
hardware.
And-
So 2 years seems like a lot, but when you add in how long it takes to make, it's like a big giant AAA games, by
Yeah,
the way.
sure,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like you can make other games in a quicker time, or depending on the size of your team, et cetera, et cetera. But I thought that was interesting.
Well,
perspective.
and they've taken a lot of flack of that, especially recently. But I think they just knew that. I think they knew they're going to have to wait out the storm, and that's why Game Pass has been a revolution for them. Is because it's. I think the narrative now is people think of Microsoft as a little bit more consumer facing compared to when the one was first announced. So I think they've weathered that storm pretty well.
Yeah.
As well as you can, anyways.
And
Yeah.
talking to Matt Booty on that topic you just brought up about like how we'll start seeing games from these internal studios now. He said the goal once they really start revving, which he predicts will be sometime this year, they aim to have an internal game, like a major internal game, every 3 months.
That's bold.
But I mean, if you look at it,
Yeah, if they got 50, like you said, the 15 studios.
I know that's still 15. I mean, there's 12 months in a year, 3. I mean, that's a lot.
I mean, we didn't mention Moon Studio, which is the Ori and the Blind Forest
Do they
studio.
own them?
They don't own them, but
Okay,
that's a
yeah.
first party game
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
coming out.
Right.
They have Bleeding Edge
That's the
coming
Xbox
out.
Game Studios Publishing.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, it seems like they're taking all the right steps toward like between Game Pass and these acquisitions to like really address that primary criticism that a lot of people have of kind of there's not enough like content to make me want to own an Xbox One over a PS4.
Yeah, and they're doing a lot of work to have great services, right? They're focusing on that, and
All my PC friends, they have the Game Pass because they're like, wow, it's so cheap, and I get all these games.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
cool.
the best value in gaming, I would say.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting too that Epic put out. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but Epic put out some numbers about how their store's performing, and like a lot of people talking about how they've given away so many great free games on the Epic Game Store that all of a sudden people are like, "Wow, I have more games on my Epic game launcher than my Steam launcher because I just got so many for free, right? That they had been and they keep. I mean, they've done a great job of getting. I'll even say masterful job of getting really great titles. Like they picked up a lot of really great titles and made them free on that launcher. So even if you get mad and you don't want to like download the free launcher, which I still don't understand, there have been a lot of great free games from the Epic Game Store.
And they just renewed that for another year. Like all throughout 2020, every week there's going to be a new free game for you to download.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy, yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, like, do you ever need to buy? Oh God, let's not even go down that path. Let's
say,
decide.
that could be another whole podcast.
Yeah, that could be. I'm trying to keep the times down here in 2020. So that's the Microsoft. So let's talk some games. Actually, no, let's talk a little hardware. So the PlayStation, the back button. Hit just yesterday.
Today,
or like
I believe.
is that when it comes available to
and
purchase?
I think I believe they're back ordered right now.
I believe it.
If you don't have it pre-ordered, you're probably not going to get it until like mid-February. I think I was seeing like that's the updated ship date.
So what this is to explain, Brian's got it here on video, but so like I don't know if you've tried a SCUF controller or any of these kind of elite controllers, things that have added paddles to the back of your controller to give you extra buttons, so that like when you're playing a first-person shooter, you don't have to take your thumbs off the sticks to do things like melee or jump, and you can assign them. That's one of the things that these kind of pro controllers have come along and done and changed about gaming. Which, by the way, I'd like to point out, I think Reiner and I have been begging for like these kind of buttons since like the 90s, right? Like, like for a long, long time, because it seemed like fingers that weren't being used. So I think it's really great that they've become a kind of standard for controllers now. So they added this. It's only 2 buttons. It's not 4, which some do have 4 buttons on the back and the paddle kind of configuration. But you've been spending some time with it, Brian.
Yeah.
What do you think of it so far?
So I'm surprised by the quality. Like it's it's just a little thing that kind
You think Sony usually doesn't have good quality on their
They
stuff?
have great quality.
That's what he's.
But
I mean, that's
the
what you
fact
implied
that
there,
you
right?
pay a lot more for a SCUF controller that
you
has
do.
like
Yes,
that.
okay, yeah.
This is one of the primary features.
Yes.
This is $30.
Yeah, that's
and
a good deal.
It's like really solid buttons. It adds a little bit of heft, but it's still relatively lightweight. And you can choose 3 different profiles on this OLED screen, and you can map them however you want. Like you could even have it be like, all right, the left on the D-pad is the left click. I don't know why you'd need that if your thumb's always on the D-pad anyway, but that's the level of customization. You can switch between profiles just by clicking. So I had one profile for Overwatch, I had one profile for Modern Warfare, and I had one profile for Street Fighter V because I was like, yeah, why not? Let's test that out.
Yeah, I think that's great. Or it'd be great if you could get enough like customization through like the game UI as well to be able to like. I always loved playing RPGs. One like drink in hand, one hand you can just analog stick run around and do the important things. And like an RPG is always something I'm a fan of. So that's a great thing. I actually spent a couple times just like kind of gave it a couple of clicks. Buttons feel good. They get a little mushy when you like try to like track and field on them. You know what I mean? Like really go like spam them, right? But I mean they're good solid levers, good buttons. I mean it's an impressive feat. And actually I was surprised when they announced that. I was like, oh, do people really care? And I looked at like the viewership and like people were talking about that thing like crazy. I think people are really excited about this. And I was kind of a little bit surprised, though I do find it to be very helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I always remap jump on for Lucio and Genji in Overwatch to the left trigger because that allows me to aim while I'm jumping around as those more mobile characters. And that with this, I didn't have to do that because I just map jump to this.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, for Call of Duty, it's basically the same profile where I have reload on the right, and so I don't have to take my thumb off to reload or jump. But instead of jump, I changed to crouch.
Did you? Yeah, I was gonna say, did you ever find yourself like in a clutch moment, clutching up and reloading?
Well, that's the problem is like if you for those like the white knuckle moments, like where you kind of grab the controller, like you're like, oh, now I'm jumping like an idiot. But yeah, I think that it's your middle finger rests nicely on it.
Yeah.
It's not like an unnatural feeling. Like my hand did cramp up a little bit when I was jumping around like an idiot, like Lucio.
Yeah.
But other than that, like it's super comfortable. I mapped the shoulder buttons to the paddles for Street Fighter because that way I could just keep my fingers on the triggers and then have the punches be on that.
Oh, nice.
So
I mean, it actually in the pictures it looks a little bulky, but I think on the controller itself it doesn't seem that bulky.
Yeah, it slides on nice. Slides right out pretty effortlessly. The first time I had to put it on, it was a little weird because it's like
you got to navigate the.
Yeah, you really got to navigate. So it has a headphone jack and then also a thing that goes in the bottom there. And the headphone jack is to enable a pass-through, so you can still use headsets for your online sessions.
Yeah, they wouldn't sell any of them if they got rid of the ability to
Yeah, exactly.
online. That would be a disaster. All right, well, thank you for that. So let's get into some games. Let's do these 2 Pokemon games or Pokemon-inspired games. Let's say so. One last week, about 7 days ago, you did a new gameplay today on Temtem.
That's right, and that is coming out on the 21st for early access on Steam, and it's headed to, I think, all consoles next year sometime. At least that's the plan.
Or the next, so 2021 sometime would be their goal. And this is a game that started in like a Kickstarter.
Yeah, it was Kickstarted.
And this is just like, we're Pokemon fans. We want more Pokemon. We want like a different Pokemon lifestyle. So it's like an MMO, right?
Completely unabashed inspiration from Pokemon.
I think it says it in the Steam description.
Yeah, it
too.
does.
Yeah.
So it does have, like you said, MMO. What does that even mean anymore? Let's not do that because that's a whole other podcast. But yes, you can
But I would like to understand what online elements it brings.
So
right?
you can see other players, you can interact with other players, like in the game space, you can like see them visually like on the field with you. With their
just
lead,
in towns or everywhere?
Everywhere. With their lead Temtem also next to them. So you get a little bit of an idea of like what they're playing.
Yeah.
Just by not even like, going into a deeper interaction with them, just by like seeing what's following them around. You can team up with them and co-op, and you can fight them. So all the stuff that you love to do, ostensibly using online features of a Pokemon game.
Can you play the whole game as co-op?
I guess theoretically, outside of the tutorial area, yes.
Yeah, I mean, because you said co-op, so it's like, are there specific co-op missions, or
No,
like
you can team up at any time. So
anytime. Does it change the? Yeah, okay.
One of the conceits is that it's. I think only 2 other Pokemon games have done this, where the standard battle is 2v2. So you've always got 2 Temtem on the field.
Gotcha.
So that when you're with a co-op, it's like 1-on-1.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So it just shows 2 kind of Tim trainers, and and they each control their own one.
Right.
Is that what the creatures are called? Tems?
They're called Temtem, I believe.
Aww.
They could just be called Tems. I'm not entirely. Yeah, they might just be called Tems.
Huh.
I mean, it's essentially it's an exercise in making sure Nintendo doesn't sue you, right?
There is that element, but I'm sure that they've got that ironed out.
I would imagine
this close to ostensibly launch. It's open beta or whatever you want, early access, but it's like it's going to be the game, right?
And we've seen things like Digimon back in the day, right? Like we're
still going.
We're obvious like rip-offs of like Pokemon, and they were big successful.
I mean, it's very formula. Like you've got gyms, you've got even the intro where you pick one of 3 with a totally not Professor Oak kind of guy.
yeah,
like it's like then that's fine. And then but there are some other things that do make it different. It does use a stam system, which is similar to a mana system, which is very different than Pokemon, where you have a limited number of use on your moves. This one will let you use all the moves you want, but better moves take more stam, and you can run out of stam. And if you do, your Temtem will get tired and hurt itself. So you kind of it creates a conservation element to fights where you might want to use a move that's not as powerful because
Yeah, you're saving up.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
you've got to sort of pace battles differently.
A little strategy, a little
Right.
extra strategy.
Well-
and I think you mentioned on there, sorry to interrupt, Alex,
you're
was that you mentioned it was a little bit harder than Pokemon.
The difficulty level is definitely much harder than a standard Pokemon title for sure.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. I think that's the knock on a lot of the more recent Pokemon games is you can blow through them, but this had felt like you actually had to strategize, and I liked the combo system, being able to pair those two Temtem on the same field. I thought that was really interesting.
So certain Temtem get, since it is using a 2 system, it sort of creates these little synergies where it's like, okay, if I've got this Temtem and I put a nature Temtem with him, he gets a bonus to his abilities. It'll make him stronger, do different effects. You've got all this kind of like synergistic stuff to take account of.
That's cool. And I thought the graphics looked good. Like I think it's got a nice style to it.
It's going to be interesting to see if like I guess the Pokemon fan base gravitates toward this thing. I'm super curious and excited to see what happens there.
I mean, if I had to guess, I think it would do well. And it's kind of one of those things that like sometimes I wonder why some genres are underserved. You know what I mean? You kind of forget that like, Battle Royale hits and everyone makes a Battle Royale.
Sure.
But like year after year when a Pokemon game comes out, people love these like collection, kind of experiences, right? Where you get to go around and do this stuff. Like the fact that we have not had more competition to Pokemon kind of is surprising.
In a way, I think the Shin Megami Tensei series is sort of like the dark, hard Pokemon of the world. It's a little different, but yeah, it's in the same vein.
So I like to see that there's more competition out there.
Sure.
And I like the idea of like, what happens if this gets big enough and will it come to Switch?
I think it actually is supposed to. I'm talking out of my,
Yeah.
But I believe that it is scheduled for a Switch release. I think it's all major consoles in 2021.
That's
At least
great.
That's the current expectation. Who knows out that far?
So I watched the new gameplay today that you did last week. Your character looked like he had a T-shirt and underwear on.
That is correct. That's
okay.
Stadnik's fault.
Hey,
Okay.
man. There was other people there too.
That was a choice?
That was a choice.
That was a choice.
We hit the
that you made.
randomizer, and it was love at first underwear.
Okay.
There were lots
All right.
of good looks for our character, but they wanted underwear.
Very
Okay.
good.
All right. Classy, keeping it classy. All right. So you're excited about that. It does cost it's early access, but it's like $30, I think, US to get the game and play.
Right. This sounds to me like one of those early access things that it's not really. It depends how early access can mean so many things, right? I think there's pretty much a full experience in the early access available. That's what I've been.
Have they commented to that specifically to say that like this is a pretty full game? We just have to fix things and like kind of expand on things.
There's some messaging there that I don't know the exact specifics of, but yeah, there's going to be like 8 gyms to do and all this other fun stuff on early access launch. I think.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. This is gonna be a really fun game to watch. I think. I think it could be a weird surprise hit.
I think it will. I mean, people are hungry for especially a Pokemon style experience with a higher difficulty level.
Yeah.
I think certainly me. Like as much as I enjoy Pokemon, like I fall asleep playing those now because it's just like you said about old RPGs, one handed with a drink in it. Just that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
And competition for Pokemon is long needed, I think, and I'd be curious to see if this pushes them in any way, if this does well.
And I think the thing that's really important here is they don't have an old Pokédex for everyone to be angry about.
They have
that's
a new
not
one.
That, so it's like everything is new, so there's no reason to be angry, which let's bring us around the angry tree, which is that Pokemon announced that they're doing 2 expansions that are coming up, which they did this on a Nintendo Direct.
Pokemon Direct, Andy.
Oh, was it a Poke?
Yeah.
God, I can't keep track with the silly names. This is following up. Pokemon Sword and Shield was their highest grossing launch, right?
Yeah, which I mean,
Nintendo-
you could look into it and say, oh, it was a $60 game instead of a $40 game, but still, it sold gangbusters, and it was the fastest selling Switch game ever.
Well, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And so they're doing 2 X packs, which is the Isle of Armor and the Crown of Tundra.
Crown Tundra.
Oh, Crown Tundra. My bad. New area and new Pokemon, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
For each one, yeah.
And people are mad, right? People are mad that they're not doing the thing that they want them
Well, I
to
think
do, right?
the main thing is that people are upset that, oh, you took away all these Pokemon for Sword and Shield, and now you're just adding them back with
a cost.
with a paid expansion. That's a real EA move, is what I'm seeing a lot of people say.
Okay. But the original, the core game is long, right?
Yeah, it is
about 40 hours.
Yeah,
right?
it took me about 45 hours to get
That's
through.
an acceptable amount for a for a $6 game, right?
But Chansey wasn't in it.
yeah, I mean,
Come on, Andy, be reasonable.
That is something to be upset about.
But Chansey is in the Isle of Armor.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right. Gotcha.
so they're adding returning Pokemon back. Not all of them, but a good chunk of them. They're adding new legendaries that you can battle and collect.
Cool.
Yeah, that's the
they're
one I'm excited
adding
for.
new areas, new customization items for your trainer, a new rival. And yeah, like there's just a bunch of stuff coming. I mean, they didn't really get into the details of the scope of these, but they described the Isle of Armor, which is the one that comes out in June. So that's the first expansion, as a giant island. And so hopefully that's hinting at like a longer story, because each one has a new story in it as well.
Oh, wow. So there's a lot of content in this.
Yeah.
Which, of course, everyone online will say, this is content you should have given me in the first game when I
How
bought
much
it.
is the DLC?
$30 for both expansions.
So that's what I was
30
confused.
each?
$30 total.
Okay.
And you get
Okay,
both.
Perfect.
All right.
But you get both the Isle of Armor and the Crown Tundra, which comes out in fall.
Right.
Yeah.
But you have to. I think there's a Sword expansion pass and a Shield expansion. So if you have both versions, you have to buy both expansion passes if you want it.
Okay.
But
I got it.
I mean, that's a very small number of
Yeah.
people.
Right.
I think.
And then I think they announced in January 2021, it's Eat It Temtem comes out.
We're still the top dogs.
Yeah.
So there's also in Crown Tundra, they haven't said too much about that one, but it's, instead of going to like the beach island that Isle of
bet
Armor
there's
is,
snow.
it's a snowy area.
Get out!
But you go.
I don't know. Is that really going to happen?
So the first one, like the big feature is you go to this dojo and you want to learn like from this old champion of the Pokemon League, like these new battle tactics. And that's where you meet your other rival that is introduced in these expansions. And also there's a new thing called restricted sparring, which is a new type of battle where like you have to only use a certain type of Pokemon or to battle under certain circumstances or,
Gotcha.
or
Yeah.
situations. So that'll add a little twist on it. I don't know how transformative it'll be to like how different the expansion is to the base game, but it's something new. And then also in the Crown Tundra, you actually get to go down into Pokemon dens, which you see in the wild area in the base game. But all that is you go there like, oh, it's a Pokemon den. Let's do a raid battle here. This one, you actually go down inside of a Pokemon den.
Is it like a dungeon?
It seems like it.
Kinda, yeah.
And they say that there's going to be new gameplay mechanics there, but there's also at the end of these you can battle legendary Pokemon from past games. They showed off the legendary birds, like they have new Galarian forms. It looks like
Oh, okay.
so like Zapdos, Moltres, and Articuno. You can battle them and catch them. Or presumably catch them. I don't think they've actually said. But then each area has a new legendary Pokemon. One is Cubfu, which is on the Isle of Armor, which is a fighting type. And then he evolves into one of two forms, which is a fighting in dark or a fighting in water type. And then there's Cyrilex, I believe, is the legendary Pokemon in the Crown Tundra.
They all meld together.
Andy, do you have any follow-up questions about Cubfu?
No, I don't. Other than like, I the look on Dan's face spoke for both of us, which was just like
Dan loves a legendary
like,
Pokemon.
No, it's just like sometimes
Cubfu.
the names are
Cubfu.
really their names are really silly. I get the attraction of Pokemon, but sometimes it's like just like going through it, it's like even when you're like, oh, there's a new rival and we're going to their dojo to fight. I mean, like they do stick to the same kind of like thing over and over again. It would be interesting to see them spread their wings and maybe try some more stuff. Is there a new or expanded or have they tried to do anything to make the Wildlands better or perform better or be a more integral part moving forward? Because I think people really seem to like that area, but it sounded like it needed work.
Well, it seems like because these expansions seem like they're pretty focused on just the new areas that you're going to. So I don't think they're doing much in terms of like the wild area in the base game.
Yeah.
However, there are going to be like areas you can do raid battles. So I don't know if that means like these new regions or new areas are going to also have their own like wild areas, or if they're just one big wild area or what.
Okay, so it's
But
unclear at this
They said
point.
there's going to be max raid battles for Pokemon that aren't available in the base game's wild area, and you can actually invite friends who don't own the expansions to do those battles with you.
Oh.
And there are ways that you can get the new Pokemon without owning the expansion pass, but it's like
You have to trade them,
trading
probably. Yeah.
or Pokemon Home. So like if you have like Chansey, for example, in a past game that's compatible with Pokemon Home, which launches next month, they said.
I mean, but let's be realistic.
You can
Everyone's
transfer
going to
forward.
complain about spending the $30 to get the expansions. Everyone's going to spend $30 to get those expansions.
Probably.
I don't know,
It's
I don't
a-
know that everyone will.
You don't think so?
I'm not planning to.
But you weren't going to play it anyway.
I played the, but I have the original. I played through it.
Oh, did you? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I thought you just were mocking the Pokemon. I didn't know you'd actually
I can
been
do
there.
both. You know, I like to have an educated mockery.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Well, excellent. I actually I'm interested to play it. I haven't played a Pokemon game in a long time.
It will feel just like you remember.
Yeah, that's what I'm scared of. So, but maybe the expansions will change that. Maybe they'll make them. Maybe they'll expand into some new horizons.
Well,
But-
and inherently, I think it's a better deal than doing the Omega or version or the super version.
Yeah,
or
the
whatever.
Heart Gold, Soul Silver,
Yeah.
or not that Platinum.
Platinum. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the past, like you have to wait a year or even more, and you get you have Diamond and Pearl, and then 2 years later you get Platinum, which you just buy a whole new game. You don't have your save file carryover.
Yeah.
It's just a new game with improvements and maybe a couple new areas. This seems to be replacing that model. And just you can still carry over your
that's
save
a pretty
file.
outdated model. By
Yeah.
the way.
Well, I mean, they did that as recently as Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon.
Wait, Nintendo? I mean,
So, yes, this seems to be replacing that model. So it's cheaper. You can bring your save file forward. You don't have to buy a whole new game. You don't have to replay it. I think this is a preferable route for them.
cool. Yeah, that sounds. I mean, I think Pokemon fans will be thrilled. That's my guess.
I'm not trying to be a hater here. Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's
I
awesome
kinda
stuff
like
for
that you're
those
a
You don't
hater.
have to try. It's effortless.
That's right. It just comes naturally.
I'm excited about it. I'm happy I don't have to get a new game for it. So
Yeah.
And you'll have to wait 2 years.
yeah.
Did you guys? Okay, so the hardcore Pokemon, which is you two, did you finish your Pokédex on the current game?
Oh, no.
I
No?
did not.
No, I mean, I know that
You call
they,
yourselves fans, okay?
cut
all
a
right.
bunch.
Not
Right?
hardcore, just fan. Yeah.
they cut a bunch of Pokemon, but still in the grand scheme of things, there are hundreds upon hundreds of Pokemon to catch.
What kind of trainers are these? Come on.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
I mean, there's more than 1,000 Pokemon that exist.
Do you want to
at
be
this
the best?
point.
Do you want to be the best?
The very
No.
best.
No. All right. Well, that's okay. That's cool. Well, that's some good news. That's for the collectors out there. That's great. That's great news. What do you even call that genre?
RPG.
Creature
Just
collector?
creature
No, it's
collector.
got to have a
like a-
subgenre.
It's got to have a yeah. It's got to be like
Creature or character collection
I've
RPG.
seen- I've seen creature collector. I think.
That's a good one. Yeah.
yeah,
That's a good
creature collector.
descriptor.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because I mean, RPG. That's not descriptive enough because
Right.
it's different. It's different. Than
It's definitely the
other
umbrella
RPGs.
it's under, though.
Yes,
But-
yeah, that would be as we go down that whole giant thing of genres are ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
It's another podcast.
Yes, that's another podcast. Everyone's trying to keep me on schedule, which I like. So the last bit of thing that we're going to talk about was, which is going to be weird because I'm going to Dan's going to be interviewing me maybe more in this
Yeah,
one.
I guess so.
We have to kind of turn the tables because I'm the only one that played yesterday. World of Warcraft had their final, I believe, kind of major content upgrade
Before Shadowlands.
before Shadowlands, which we talked about a couple months ago and we did on the cover, which was super exciting, and there's a lot of cool things coming with that. But this is the kind of end of this long battle for Azeroth.
Yeah, it's still going. You know, the battle will never end, some say. Azeroth is constantly under turmoil.
It does feel that way at times, especially because of a lot of things. Before we start, a lot of things they introduced with Battle for Azeroth have been very negative to people that like to play alts. And I love to play alts in Legion, and I have hated the experience in BFA. And I was excited when this was first announced as the final content patch. I was like, oh, it's the final one. They'll finally open the gates and stop being so stingy with the ability to make other characters than your main pretty powerful. But nope. They still want to make you grind it on every one of your characters, and I do not get it.
Now, to be fair, historically, I think there's probably going to be some kind of catch-up event prior to the expansion if you want to get your alt ready. They've done that stuff before in the past, right?
I don't want to just get my alt ready for the next expansion. The best part of alts is you play you play a DPS class, right? And you DPS all day and you do dungeons. And by the way, World of Warcraft is a grind. Hold up. I know I'm blowing your mind, right? But eventually there's only so many dungeons and there's only so many raids that are viable at that moment that you're like, I've done this raid 15 times. I'm bored of it. I'd like to do it with a different character. So maybe I could heal it. Maybe I could tank it. Maybe instead of being a ranged DPS, I could be a melee DPS. You know, I mean, all these kind of things. And
I've got your solution. You should just play a druid.
Well, I have a druid.
I'm just joking. I just mess
but
with
you know, and the characters they play differently and they're interesting, and that's one of the things I love about WoW is that they've created this world with all these different characters that you can play and all these different things that you can do, and then they try so hard to make sure you only play one variant of it. And I even mean that in this particular game, like they kind of make you play that one class even within that particular character
sub-spec,
type.
yeah.
So that's really annoying too. Like the things that you need to invest to be a good healer, even though you made your character a DPS, which I know they're trying to create some individuality to the characters,
Right.
but it's just at least for me, my friends, the friends that want to have the individuality, they just do their one character and they go, oh, it's too much work, and then they quit playing. Right.
Yeah.
And the people who would normally hang around and play alts, they're like, this is way too much work. And they quit playing. So I feel like WoW's doing themselves a disservice right now. And it's really annoying.
BFA has not historically been one of the best received expansions.
No.
That's lots of little things to pick at for that one.
Yeah, I would agree. I would actually think it's been the worst in a while.
It depends who you talk to, but yeah, it just overall it has not been well received.
Gorgeous, though.
Yeah.
I would like to point out, which they've done. Their production team has been killing it. Before I make fun of any of the design team decisions, but
Sure.
the production team's been killing it.
This may not be as on subject as we wanted, but as someone who stopped playing during Burning Crusade, but is, so it's been a while, but has also had like the nagging itch in the back of my head, like I could go back. Like, is this a good time to go back, or just wait?
Well,
waiting.
The best time I think to go back would be any time right before a new expansion drop, because then you'll just be on par with everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with Dan there. I mean, you can come back now. The problem is that the same thing that's making it difficult for like alts is the same thing that's going to make it for someone who comes in to join now to kind of catch up. And that's this mechanic that it actually takes. There's some new things that this takes. So basically, one of the things is the BFA gave this thing where you have this neck, right, that you get essences for, right? And you put these essences in, and they're like 4 extra powers, essentially, that you get for your character. And they're meaningful, right? Like when you add one of these slots, your damage is going up like 5 to 10%, which that's a lot, like in an MMO, right? To be like, I did this one thing, and now I do this much more damage. I do this much more healing. I can tank this much better. It's a lot. They have levels. They have like green, blue, and orange, right? Or does it go to orange? No, orange is the final one. There's a purple before.
Orange is
There's there's the final one is
like
just
the
like
loot.
it's just like it's cosmetic, but just like the loot. But they put in all these things that you have to do to get them, right? Like grind this dungeon for 3 months,
Yikes.
whatever, to get this essence to be good, right?
To be fair, we were doing stuff like that back in the Burning Crusade.
We were, but I mean, the thing is, the variety's so great, and then also too, when they're like, "Oh, this is the best essence for you to have," and you're like, "Oh, I'll farm that one," and then they're like, we changed our mind.
Sure.
Now this is the best essence to have, and you have to go farm that again. It's just kind of forced farming, and it's really a thing they're into. And in other cases too, like one of the ones that you have to get is like, go get 50,000 honor in Battlegrounds. That's a lot of honor in Battlegrounds.
If you don't like PvP, yeah,
it's a lot.
Take you a while,
right? And that particular essence is really good for one of my classes in the dungeons, and so you would go grind that thing, and it's like the reason that got you to those other levels was you got the achievement, and they wouldn't make the achievements account wide. The achievement was just for that character, so you'd go grind like 175,000 total honor for your character to get this essence, and you'd have to do it again on other characters. And that's a
lot to ask.
That's a ridiculous ask, right? And they've continued down the path of having these ridiculous asks of like, you need to have high rep with these people, other things like that. And this was their opportunity to fix that, and they didn't. And that's the thing, when I played it last night, since I'll kind of answer my own question, a lot of the quest chain that's here as they open up this new stuff is like, go to the Halls of Origination. Go to Oldham. Go back to the Halls of Origination. And it's like they ping pong you back and forth between turning in a quest and running out to do the thing probably like 8 times.
It's the classic design.
The classic design, right? And it takes about, so this new content takes about 3.5 hours.
Okay.
Last night I had friends that started to do it on alts, and they had to do the whole thing again. These scenarios that are really like not very good.
Yeah.
And then later in the night, they made it so you could skip the scenarios if you'd done them once. So that was one thing that was positive towards alts, which cuts about an hour off. But it's about 2 hours worth of content you need to go kind of grind. And it's stuff like you need to go do dailies. You need to go do, like, it's.
But there's a light at the end of this tunnel, right? It's something new and cool you can do.
Yeah, you get a cloak. Get a really nice cloak that brings you to, like, when you get this new cloak, you can go level up this cloak by going into these Visions of N'Zoth, which is like weekly quests.
Okay.
And if you kill the boss in there, you get a item that lets you raise the item level of your cloak by 2.
Okay, so this is a lot like the neck. Where you're
Yes,
just up in
but if you
level.
screw up in a week after you buy these things, 'cause you have to grind the economy piece to open it up, right? You have to
Okay.
buy them, right? So you have to do
Sure.
some grinding to open it up. You go in, you get the item, but if you fail, you don't get the upgrade that week, and you only get so many options.
You can't retry it.
Yeah, you can't retry it.
What?
So like last night, I was playing with a friend, and he was like, "Oh, I'll totally get you through this and lead you through it. And we won't screw it up. We're gonna go because it's a gamble, right? You can go get more stuff that can help make your runs easier because there's a chest that basically has a talent tree that you can buy pieces in that make these visions run quicker. So here's the thing: the cloak stops the insanity. This whole expansion's
Sure.
about corruption, which
Yeah,
I
I
don't
get
know
it.
that I like. They got rid of Titan forging to introduce this corruption thing, so you can only have so many items that have corruption on them
Right.
at a time, and your cloak is what unlocks how much corruption you can have. And so when you go into these visions, while you're just standing there, you have a bar that's just going down. You're
Sure,
losing
you're
your
going- you're going
insanity.
insane. Yeah,
Yeah, you're
it's
going
a
insane.
mechanic
And,
I've played with
and when it
before.
gets to 0, you die.
Yep.
And if
All
you
right.
didn't kill the boss before it blows up, you don't get your thing.
And these are like instance dungeons, randomized.
Yeah, they're instance dungeons or weeklies. There's dailies that you can do to grind
Okay.
the essentially the economy item you need.
Yes.
And then these visions, which you can only do 3 a week.
3 a week.
You can do 3 weeks.
Okay.
You can go up items like 6 item level, I think is what it is. So, but I
And-
mean,
and
like,
if you fail them, there's no way.
There's no way to get
get
back.
more chances.
so like my main is going to have, and by the way, it's a point of contention. My main is going to be behind the curve, and by the way, behind the curve for the foreseeable future.
Oh, I mean, until Shet. I mean, it's not.
Until
None
I-
of it's going to make any difference.
I know it's
Yeah.
not. But it's like, but until we hit the max, and I can
Right.
catch up with that one extra week, I'm there, right?
You know, there's not going to be any other opportunities where you're going to be like, oh, well, now we're going into the deep visions where you can.
Maybe
They do stuff
kind
like
of.
that,
They do
yeah.
this stuff like that. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do and what changes they'll make. Because that's the thing too that Blizzard does do well, as I make fun of them to some degree, is that they will listen to what people are mad about, and they'll go like, "Hey, we can fix that in like 3 months," kind of thing. Because it does take time to develop, and
Yeah.
make some changes. I get it, but they may listen and change some of that stuff. But right now, yeah, I'm eternally behind
I get it.
every one of my raid makes, and that's one of those things I'm like, I'm done. I'm quitting.
But like just for like a +2 eye level.
I know. I'm ridiculous.
I know, but no, that's the MMO mindset. You're right.
Yes,
that
you're
is,
like
that is how it's supposed to be.
I am no longer min-maxing.
Exactly, which is
Right?
the key.
Yeah, which is
to-
the
to
key.
all
To that.
life.
That's what I'm trying to do is to
Right.
be the most powerful version of myself
Absolutely.
in that game. And that's why, to the alt point, is that like the reason why it's so hard to play alt right now is like I can play an alt. They haven't stopped you from playing alts. I just can't be ultra competitive as an alt unless
Sure.
I go invest 30 hours a week grinding for this alt. And it's
Sure.
like that's just not a fair ask.
Without knowing too much about the specifics about this stuff, though, I feel like this +6 a week, they're probably going to have some like, as time goes on, they'll uncap it in some fashion so that people
Yeah,
can catch
that
up.
would
probably, but
Probably,
I don't,
but we don't know.
Right.
Sometimes they're very quick with that kind of stuff. I don't know. Maybe it's like if I could rebuy it. You know what I mean? If I could go grind something to rebuy it that week,
Yeah.
that I can have 3 successes a week rather than just 3 attempts.
Sure.
I don't know. But
Well-
it's like, oh, by the way, this is all a system I learned last night, like playing
Yeah,
for like
yeah.
5 or 6 hours.
Of
So
course.
like, I'm sure there's going to be some mistakes in what we're talking about here. But I would be remiss if I didn't talk about. It's nice to have a new cloak. It comes in at I think it starts at 370. So it's a nice
Mm-hmm.
cloak, right out the bat. They introduced the Volpera as a playable race.
Yay.
The Mechanomes as a playable race. The raid is next week. There's a whole new raid. There is these assaults, which kind of take place. They're kind of annoying. But there's also, they improved the auction house, which
Really?
they haven't done anything new to the auction house in a long, long time. Spent some time with it. It's not amazing, but it's definitely better. Instead of listing like every item ever and you having to scroll through 60,000 leagues to find like the item you're looking for, it actually just lists each item once and how many items of that are available. And then when you dig in on that, how many items of that are available, it'll show you the various pricing and like the options within that. So it's got a little bit more of a root tree kind of effect that you dig through as opposed to
handy.
just like, I want this item and it shows you so many and it takes forever to load and like a whole bunch of things. It seemed a lot smoother as far as a
Cool.
thing. So that was nice to see an AH improvement.
Realistically, though, you're still going to have to use an auction house mod, right?
I don't think it's is required because it is showing you like here are the prices.
Okay.
Like it has some of like Auctionator, which is a mod for people that don't play WoW. That's like has improvements to the auction house. I felt like this was comparable. Like a lot of those kind of
That's
things
cool.
they took and
That's
added
awesome.
into the auction house itself. I mean, they still have. I mean, by the way, I could do a whole podcast on problems I have with WoW. Which, by the way, I always like to say this. Whenever I really am against a game, that means I love it because I played it so much to be able to critique it so much, right? I'm not trying to be entirely negative. It's like they have auction house issues as far as like them being like, when you're on a crappy server, you're stuck with a crappy auction house. I mean, like all these kind of server shard things that they've not addressed. And even in this particular game, I've always been like, oh, great, you did that. But I would love to see them do more to make world PvP more balanced, more matchmaking kind of things in that, where people couldn't like just like storm areas with just giant raids, or like when I had this happen to me a lot where you'd be like, oh, I'm going to go do the dailies. And then you go to do the dailies and you're the one faction that has 3 people in the zone and they have 10,000 in the zone.
It happens.
You just get rickrolled and it's like just not fun. And I think they could make it more balanced, I think, across the board. But that's me, once again.
Back to Burning Crusade for me then, I guess.
Hey, you know what? In Classic, pretty soon, go play Classic. You may be able to get right back to where you were.
It's possible.
Yeah, definitely.
And real quick, I just looked at my watch, which tells me the date, and I realized the back button accessory actually comes out next week.
Oh, next week.
Yeah.
Okay.
My
Excellent.
mistake.
No problem. And that's a good catch. It was just like the embargo lifted so we could talk about it, I think.
Sure.
What was it, yesterday or the day before? So we want to make sure we get it in there. So that's a show. Thank you guys for coming on. I appreciate it. We have coming up, community emails with our guest, Nolan Filter. Who did our Extra Life. He gave to come on the show, and we were so happy to have him on. So thank him for that. It's a fun segment, and we will see you very shortly. Cheers. Hello, and welcome back to the Game Informer Show. I'm your host, Andy McNamara. And this segment, we're going to tackle community emails, which this week we have a very special guest. Nolan Filter has joined us from NYC, right?
Yep.
Woo! And you Extra Life.
That's right, yep.
You joined us for the marathon. How much of the marathon did you watch?
A good amount of it, yeah. Was donating throughout. It was pretty fun.
Did you had a good time?
I did. It was great.
You ended up with some cool stuff, too.
I did, yeah. My favorite is the Bayonetta gun. I snagged that one, so
Yeah,
big Bayonetta fan.
That's awesome. And also, you got a chance to be on the Game Informer podcast.
I did, yeah.
Woo!
Even better.
So are you regretting that purchase now?
A little bit, but we'll see how this goes.
Okay, all right, excellent.
We do have leftover Calamity Canes if you want one for the road.
Really feel like I'm part of it, yeah.
Don't do it. They're so awful.
Get the full Extra Life experience.
Also joined this week for community emails is Brian Shea.
Hey.
Dan the Jacket Tack.
Hey, everybody.
Looking wonderful. And in the box is Alex Stadnick. How you
Hello. We had a world premiere with that jacket.
doing? And
World premiere.
It is spectacular. Everyone's gonna be talking about it. Let's be realistic.
Reddit is
I hate
ablaze right now.
Yeah,
I hate it so much.
I see it trending worldwide. Definitely. When the podcast
It's a
hits.
force unlike anything we've ever seen on the Game Informer Show podcast.
It's certainly something that we've never seen on the Game Informer podcast before.
But you'll see it again.
Yeah, we will see it again. No, we welcome the new jacket. So if you want to get your email or question read on the show, please send your comments. And by the way, I read them. So I got a lot of great comments last week too. Someone brought up, by the way, that we should have mentioned Minecraft as a place, a world to live in, which I thought was an interesting.
I don't want to live there.
You don't want to live there?
There's creepers everywhere, spiders, and
There are a lot of giant spiders.
I don't. You get the Ender Zone.
But think
or
of the
whatever.
adventure. Your life is full of adventure.
I could get adventure a lot of places. I don't.
And his jacket would attract all of them.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
Did anybody
Yeah.
mention like Chicago from Watch Dogs?
No.
Okay.
No, they didn't. But yeah,
That's all I
a
hate.
that's a real
Yeah,
place.
but it's a real place. It's kind of like cheating.
Yeah.
You can
Living
just
in
go to
Chicago would be
Chicago.
cool, though.
But podcast at GameInformer.com is where you want to do that. So we have I got a lot of great questions this week. There's some of them we're actually going to move to next week that we thought were really great. So if you didn't get your question read, that's perhaps why. And we're always trying to watch a little bit of time. And but before we start, I did want to ask Nolan. So tell us some about you as a gamer.
So I actually am not just a gamer, but I am a game developer.
What?
Yeah, so I've got my own game studio
Oh, awesome.
called Up at Night.
And?
So yeah, I just put out a game recently called Imposter Drawster, which is a party game of deceitful drawing. So you can check that out for free on iOS and Android. But I really like those sort of social games, local co-op, getting people together, and maybe adding in some digital components to what's really a physical experience.
Oh, that's awesome. So when did you start? I mean, so you've been a gamer, let me guess, your whole life.
Yeah,
And so when did you know you wanted to be a developer?
my whole life.
So like
Yeah, I
right from the
really
start.
have wanted to make video games for a while. Kind of took a longer path to get there, but now I got my master's in game design, and I'm working on games and some other weird, cool future technology. So,
Where did you go to school?
NYU.
NYU. So like, would you recommend it to other like young and coming game developers? That like, that's a question we get a lot. It's like
Yeah.
people want to know where they should go and how they could become a game developer. So I think this is an interesting story.
Totally, yeah. NYU's got a great program for both undergrad and graduate level. I did the graduate level, and yeah, they're really kind of in the forefront of making sure that games as a holistic design experience. So you're not just learning how to, build the games with development. You're also learning how to think about games critically. You're looking at design in general and how that applies to games, and then bringing that all together.
And I assume you do like a kind of like senior project kind of thing where you work together with another group to kind of put all those different
That's right.
abilities together, right?
Yeah. So mine was a online multiplayer thriller called The Curse of Mannequin Island, which played with some social mechanics where you don't know if another person you see is or another mannequin you see is a person. They might be a traitor, and you're kind of playing around in this space. But it's cool. We got to show it at the Tokyo Game Show in
wow.
2015.
That's awesome. And I love
Nice.
that. I've always been a fan of like, I love that. I've wanted games to explore that more where you're like, is that an NPC or is that a player character? Because we always like very like that's a player character. But I love the idea of being able to kind of sneak up on people. That's one of the things I liked about Spy Party was
Right,
that,
totally.
you were like, you tried to be AI to fool people. And I really love that as a design idea. And so I think it's really interesting. It must have been a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so your studio, how big is the studio?
It's pretty small. It's me and one other guy now. Was previously two other guys, but then we, bring on contractors for doing art and sound and things like that.
Gotcha. And so are you happy with the performance? When did the game come out? When did Up at Night come out?
So Up at Night's the studio name.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So yeah, we've been around a couple
Yeah.
years. Imposter Drawster came out in an open beta kind of last year.
Okay.
So you can check that out. And I'm working on improving it and adding some online features. So
Is it scary out there in making like iOS, Android? I mean, there's a lot of
it
games.
is, yeah, very scary. So yeah, that is not my full-time job, but that is something I want to be doing more of.
So you want to keep staying like independent like this as your own studio, or would you want to go somewhere else, or what's your end game?
I'd like to stay independent. I'd like to grow the studio, hire some other people, and really make some cool stuff. So I don't know. That's the goal. Is grow the studio.
So is there an Up at Night Twitter account that we should follow? Do you have any of that kind of things that we should tell people to check it out?
At Up at Night Games on most everything.
Okay.
And upatnight.games is the website.
Oh, all right. Excellent. I'm going to check that out afterwards.
Yeah, please do.
I should have done a better job of asking you these questions before we got live, and I could have I could have been more prepared. But that's super exciting, and I'm glad that you both love games, and that you used your power to donate to Extra Life, which is for the good of the kids. And I'm glad you're here on the show. So welcome, Nolan.
Thank you.
First question. Hi, all. 2 questions for you, fine ladies and gents, about your personal gaming backlog. What's the most memorable dilemma you have had with your gaming backlog? What to play now versus what to delay playing? The classic, the classic conundrum. And then 2, what well-reviewed or popular genre have you never played or barely played at all because it's always at the end of your list of your gaming backlog? Tim D in Texas. So, backlog. The scourge of every gamer ever, except apparently Dan Tack. So we're going to let you answer the question first, Dan Tack.
Sure.
What is your comment about gaming backlogs?
This has come up on the cast before, and the answer hasn't changed. Like, unless it's for work, obviously that's a different situation.
Yeah.
But if it's not for work, I just play what I want to play. That's it. I don't worry about having a backlog. It's like, if I want to play Monster Hunter today, that's what I'm going to play.
So it's not that you don't have games out there. It's that you just decide you're done with them.
It's an attitude, not a.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
more of a philosophy where
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't have a checklist or something I've got to be like, oh, I have to get to this.
Yeah.
That's never going to happen. It's just like on any given day when I'm playing games, that's the game I'm going to play because that's what I want to play.
But there's no game that you're like, I would like to have time to check this out.
I just don't feel obligated. If I really want to play the game, I'll make the time. That's how it works. Like,
Okay. But you've never done this. I've done this where I'm like if you're in front of a dog and you hold 2 treats and they're like,
Okay.
oh, I don't know which treat. I do that. Like I open up my PC and I've got like all my icons, or I open up like Steam, or even turn on my PlayStation. I look at all the games and I go, and I've even had times where I've done that and I've looked at it and I've just turned it off and walked away. Right? I don't know if anybody else has. I've done that, and I know it sounds crazy, but I've done it. So you
that makes sense. So
never have that moment.
If I'm that dog, I pick a treat and then I forget about the other treat instantly.
Wow, that's a superpower, by the way.
I guess.
You are the goodest boy.
Yeah. I mean, because I just can't have there's always a guilt about a game series I've not played.
That doesn't mean that I'm not going to have that other treat sometime, but I'm not thinking about that game. I'm not obligated to that game in any way. Like, I'm not going to be like, oh man, I really regret not playing that. It's just like, meh.
Do you have any game that you're like, I wish I would have had time to play that game?
No, because like I said, the philosophy dictates that if I really wanted to play it, I would have.
What about a game you wish you could have played more of?
Or how about a game you never finished?
Oh, Persona 5. But I don't regret it. Like,
Because you're like, it's not good enough for what I want it to be, and you just move on.
It was great, but like the timing was like, when you move off of a huge RPG like that, and it gets to be a week later, it's just like, I'm not going back.
Are you going to play
that's
Royal?
Just done forever.
I might go back to Royal. See, that's the thing. Well, it'll have to be in the moment, right? I have to the gaming moment that I'm talking about.
I mean, that's right
here.
before just an onslaught of other games that are coming out.
It's probably not going to make it then.
I mean, within like the next 3 weeks, it's like Resident Evil 3, Final Fantasy 7, and Cyberpunk.
So why do you hate games so much, Dan?
I'm sure that's a great question. No, it's just like I've tried to I just don't want to be burdened by that.
Okay,
like I said, it's more of a philosophical angle than anything else.
Does this exist in other parts of your life? Have you ever opened your closet and had to choose between 2 blazers you're going to wear?
I do, and then once I pick the one, I forget about the other blazer.
The red jacket doesn't even exist anymore in your mind.
It still exists, but I'm not obligated to do anything with the red jacket.
Dan Tack and I went out for dinner one time. He decided he was done with me, and he just left the restaurant.
He never thought about it again.
Nolan, how about you? Are you a backlog guy?
I have a backlog for sure. So what was interesting for me at the end of the year when all of the roundups were coming out and people were talking about games, the kind of litmus test that I used for which ones I really wanted to play before the end of the year was which ones I'd just skip over that segment. Because I didn't want to, I wanted to be a part of that conversation. I wanted to have my own thoughts before engaging with it. So that was helpful to see, actually, I do want to play Outer Wilds before I hear anything about it, and then go back and listen to those.
Yeah, it is nice to have I like a clean, I know some people say it's not a spoiler to say that got boring towards the end. Then I watch something or play something, I'm like, when does this get boring? Am I missing the point? Do I not know when boring is? Am I bad? Do I not, I hate, even when it's very general, for some strange reason, it sticks in my head or whatever, or even in a movie where they're like, oh, there's a big surprise, and something happens, you're like, is that the big surprise? Is that the big surprise?
Yeah.
That can't be the big surprise, which it fills my head with that stuff.
You're just constantly waiting for it to happen. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm with you on that. So any great regrets on this, haven't played?
Ooh.
On the backlog, that's the shame? We're looking for shame.
For shame, okay. I guess Mass Effect is my big shame.
Wow.
Which one is a big one?
I haven't played any of those, and I feel like I'd really like them, and I just, it's kind of intimidating to get into an entire trilogy.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
This is a point where I would like to say to EA and BioWare out there, this is your opportunity. You have a customer sitting right here to do a Mass Effect remaster, all 3 together, new combat system. Yes, yes, yes. Do it now. 1.
Or just-
one
I'll pick it up.
we've already got
Yeah.
1. I think I can maybe count for it.
I mean, I would buy it again.
right, we got
if you
2.
give me Mass Effect 1 and 2 with Mass Effect 3 combat, I'm in.
See,
I'll
I'm
one-up
selling
you.
games for you, EA. There's a reason for me to do that.
I'll buy the $250 collector's edition.
There we go.
Without
Wow.
the game.
Look at
Bring it
this.
on. Yeah.
That might be my favorite series of last generation. So
Yeah, I loved it too. So that's an opportunity. And look at the service you do for Nice Nolan here. Who you gave money to kids. Come on now, EA. Let's do your part. Do your part. Brian.
yeah, so I have just a massive backlog.
So you succumb to the pressure.
Yeah,
where's the shame?
The
We wanted-
problem is that it's hard for me. I'm such a collector that I will buy games that are on really good sale on either Xbox Live or Steam or
With
PSN.
no intent of playing anytime soon.
No intent of playing anytime soon. It's like, oh, I want to play Metal Gear Solid 5 at some point. It's on sale for $10. Or Watch Dogs 2 is another example. It's just a game I really want to play and I just haven't gotten to. And I bought it during the E3 sale this past year, and it's like, oh, I'll get to this once things slow down a little bit, and then they just haven't slowed down. And my other thing is that I always succumb to the comfort food games for me.
Yeah.
Like Overwatch, I should replay Final Fantasy X for a 7th time. Or it'd be great to replay Pokemon Red and Blue. And that always ends up taking up all my time. It's like, oh, do I want to start Watch Dogs 2? Or
And
do
you
I
just
wanna,
say, no, I just want to play Overwatch.
I'm just going to play Overwatch or start a new save on Witcher 3.
Okay,
And
yeah, I gotcha.
that kind of ends up being why I don't get to
So
these
you're a
games.
bit of a comfort collector.
Yeah.
Okay.
I collect the games that I want to play eventually, and it ends up being very idealistic.
Do you ever
in
think that's a
my-
bad behavior? Do you ever want
Yeah.
to change that behavior?
Yeah, actually, last year I really, this is turning into a therapy session now, but last year I actually focused on just playing the games that I want to play and then not worrying about
you're
Re-
just Dan is
Living
just-
that Dan
That's-
tax life.
that's the life.
Resident
Yeah.
Evil 2, I enjoyed what I played of it, but then it got to the point where I was like, yeah, maybe I'll finish this one day, but I'm just going to move on and play whatever else came out around that time. And
Okay. So finishing games isn't as important for you.
I like to finish them if I'm really feeling it, or if I'm close to it and it's like I'm ready for this to be over. Oh, I only have 2 more hours before it's over.
Okay, so and what's your great shame?
I would say Monster Hunter World is one that I would really like to get
Yeah.
in, but the one that I'm constantly harassed about is Majora's Mask.
Okay.
Because so here's the thing, Ocarina of Time for the longest time was my favorite game of all time. Breath of the Wild has recently replaced it. And then Final Fantasy X was always number 2, which is now number 3. Both of those are long-running series that rarely put out direct sequels. But these are 2 instances where they did put out direct sequels.
And you didn't play
And I
them.
never played them, even though they were 2 of my favorite games ever.
You're the reason that their marketing groups were so wrong and they didn't make as much money as they thought. They're like, oh, these people who love these games will totally buy it. And they didn't buy them.
Well,
They
Majora's
didn't play
Mask
them.
was a weird thing because you needed to have the expansion pack. That's why I never played it on N64. Because you needed to have that expansion pack for the
Oh,
N64.
for the memory?
Yeah, the memory.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
it came out on 3DS, and I was like, oh, cool, I'll buy this and play it. So I bought it at midnight, downloaded it, and then I just never played it.
I just want to let you know that's a weak excuse. I didn't have I didn't have the expansion pack for memory. I just want to let you know that's a weak excuse. It's a
Andy,
weak excuse. We're moving on.
I
Moving on.
was 11 years old.
You know,
That was weak.
it's time to grow up, right?
Well, now it is, yeah. Now that I'm going to be 33.
How about you, Alex?
So right now is probably the worst my backlog has been, and the main gem of shame in that is I have not started Control yet. Game Informer's Game of the Year 2019. Because I've been waiting for an opportunity to get everything off my plate so I can just focus on that one thing. But then, like the fool that I am, over Christmas break, I got Collection of Mana, Witcher on Switch, and Dragon Quest XI. And so it's like I keep filling up that backlog.
Which of
and,
those that you just got are you playing the most?
Dragon Quest has sunk its
Okay,
teeth
gotcha.
into me. It's really great. But I really liked. I hadn't played Secret of Mana until this break, and I'm really enjoying that as well. But I think it's just gonna get to a point where I just have to start Control. Because it's an Alex Stadnick game. I just haven't got into it yet.
Yeah, I feel like you'd like it. I thought Joe would like it too, and he played it, and then he put on Twitter that he was just
Yeah,
he
he
just bounced
kinda-
off, just
yeah.
didn't do it.
Yeah. I think my greatest shame though is I've never finished a From game to completion, which is something I would like to do. Don't look at me like
No,
that.
nobody
Dan.
has to. No, I mean, you don't have to.
Yeah, that's true.
You don't have to, but if you were to do one, I would do Bloodborne.
Yeah, that's the only one that
totally.
I've put any amount of time into, really.
And I didn't have a PS4 when that came out initially, so that's a good one to go back to.
That's actually one that I every 2 months I say I should replay it. I'm actually really want to replay Bloodborne.
very good.
I don't know why, actually, but I really do.
Because best game
great.
ever made.
For me, I always have a backlog. I'm always, I'm always dealing with stuff. I don't know my greatest shame. I will say I have two shames, and this is like they just make me angry, and I don't know why, but they make me angry. And that's Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater, has always annoyed me. And we actually joked about doing a replay with me so I can finally see that game through, because there's parts that I think are genius, and then I get mad at it, and then I hate it, and then I walk away from it. I don't know why.
You don't like 40-minute cutscenes?
That might be it. And then the other one is, everyone loves Breath of the Wild, and I do not. And I cannot finish that game. And I've trapped myself on planes, like, I'm going to play this, and then I go, and I bounce off it.
Way to, go right attitude to go into that with.
Well, I mean, like, to some degree, I've used, like Space Prison as a way to, like, make me play something. You know what I mean? Because I'm always, like, I'm not getting over the hump. Do you know what I mean? Like, because it's easy to bounce off when you're not, like, invested, right? So, I feel like being trapped, like, on a vacation or something like that, that's the opportunity to like, I'm either going to fall in love or not, but I have to give it that time. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. So that's almost in line with what I was talking about before with Ocarina of Time and Final Fantasy. Like I said, Breath of the Wild is now my favorite. I never played the DLC.
I don't understand how those two connect.
Because it's basically a continuation of those games.
Breath of the Wild's its own game.
Yeah, but the DLC came out. You would think, like, because that's my favorite game of all time, I'd want to play the DLC. Just like Ocarina of Time I love, you'd think I'd want to play the sequel.
You're confusing
You're
me
a fake
greatly.
fan. That's what we're come to.
Okay.
Moving right along.
Yeah, thank you.
I didn't think it was that confusing.
I don't understand the connection, but that's me. Let's move on. Let's do this next one. So this one is going to be tough for you to answer, Nolan, which is, hello, commuter heroes. Since starting to listen to the podcast, my experience reading the GI magazine has changed forever. Now the author names at the end of each article adds a layer of personality I had never before experienced. So, well, thank you for listening, and I'm glad that makes the magazine more fun. Naturally, that leads me to my question. Is there any interviews with folks in the industry that has forever altered the way you interpret their game when playing? Or has a personality interviewed ever tainted your review of their game, for better or worse? Keep up the good work. You'll go far here. John from Virginia. So, Nolan, I know you haven't. Did you interview? How about you interview at school? Did you interview any developers?
Not really. I don't know. I've gone to talks and things by developers.
How about a talk? Was there a developer you heard speak that you were like, I someday want to be that dude, that lady that they were so inspiring?
Will Wright had a really, really
That's
good
a good one?
speech.
Yeah.
That was all about, it was based on how long people can pay attention, which is like 7 seconds or something. So his entire talk was timed out with a slide every 7 seconds. So there was like 300 slides or something, and he was just going through. This was, I think, pretty recent after Spore, but it was just like an amazing talk.
That's
and
crazy.
Really, really like, the thoughtfulness which he approaches not only the subject matter, but like the way that people are interacting with his subject matter.
So did you agree with his basically synopsis of what he felt like that the 7 seconds is accurate?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely kept me engaged the whole way through.
Yeah. So
So-
do you apply that to your games?
I
Do you
don't.
try?
I should do that. No, I also teach, so I might start doing that. But yeah.
You also teach. Wow, you're a real Renaissance.
Yeah.
Man, I had no idea. Well, that's exciting. I remember when I first met Will. It took all of about. I've said this before. It took all of about 3 seconds to go. This guy's a genius. Like, this guy is a genius. I mean, you don't like him and Haw. Like, I don't know how smart this guy is in like 3 seconds. You're like, that guy's really, really, really smart, and super interesting. And obviously has an interesting take on design and the way humans think. And entertain themselves, right? So, real genius. That's a good one. How about you guys?
I don't know if I've ever like had my perception of someone's work change based on like a real life interaction or like
Yeah.
an interview, but I look at Ed Boon's Twitter account much different having met him and interviewed him multiple times now, because like you could see his personality shine through in the Twitter, like the way he trolls the fans.
He has a lot of fun.
He really does,
account,
and you can kind of see that, like he has kind of like a wink behind some of his answers, that like when you ask him stuff like, hey, you put a lot of fighting, like a lot of horror movie characters in a fighting game. Would you ever want to do a horror movie fighting game? And he's just kind of like does like a wink and like who knows, maybe one day.
Yeah, he is in the top 10 nicest people in video games, by the way, because I don't have an order. He might be number one, I'm not sure, but he's definitely like, he's up there. He's a super nice guy, and like it's sometimes just so funny. You meet him and you're like, you made Mortal Kombat? You know what I mean? Like just.
You're that, or he hosted the Man Show alongside Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah. Oh, I get that. I get that reference. Great choice. How about you, Dan?
Well, the second part of the question I thought was pretty interesting. Like, would you knock down a game's review score based on a negative interview? That's certainly not. Like,
certainly not. Yeah.
That's like an independent. Like,
well, I think in both cases you try to separate the person from the product, right? Which is hard sometimes, because sometimes some people, like, there are people out there you're like, that person's saying some crazy stuff, right? And even in like movies, like sometimes you're like, what did Tom Cruise say, or what did Tom Cruise do? But you still like want to be able to go and like go escape and enjoy that entertainment and keep them separate as a critic. But continue, please. I
guess, and I don't think my perception of a game has ever been altered by an interview I did either. But Miyazaki from Software, like I always find interviewing him fascinating. He's just very enthusiastic about when you talk about like minutia from the games, like he's got all that in his head and is just ready to talk about that kind of stuff, as opposed to like top level PR style coached answers.
Yeah.
I also will throw in that the trip to Game Freak for the Pokemon cover story that we did last year.
Yeah.
I just really was fascinated by the the design philosophies of Masuda Omori and even James Turner, their art director for Pokemon Sword and Shield. Just like the concept of trying to keep things as simple as possible, not over designing it, and then also like the way that they have to justify every little part of a character, like a new Pokemon's design, when they're pitching like, oh, we want to make this new Pokemon. All right, well, why does he live? Why does he exist in this region? Why does he have those horns? Does he have to fend off like predators? And like
why does he have a top hat?
Yeah.
They have to justify every little part of the design in like a real world.
It's one of those things that, like, I mean, that's what happens when you have a brand that's like one of the biggest in the world. Right?
It is the biggest in the world.
You have to like you have to do that level of things. Thankfully, a lot of other brands don't have to do that. But it is interesting that they have to. That's both their greatest victory and like the thing that they have to deal with forever. That everything's going to be more difficult because of that. Alex, you're somewhat new to the interview game, the Game Informer game.
Yeah,
but
I did do one in my internship.
You did?
I did.
Who was that?
So it was really interesting, actually. I interviewed the twin brother heads of an indie studio called Red Blue Games, and they did a game called Sparklight, which was it was a roguelite, but more like approachable. And I just really loved hearing their story about it was the Rowe brothers and just how they grew up playing games together, that it's difficult for them to work with each other sometimes because the twin brother thing, that they'll go head to head. They agree on stuff, but like they'll really like butt heads on things that they don't. And I like those interesting family stories when it comes to games. So
do they have to make co-op games and they cannot make anything else? Is there some kind of like rule? That they are
That's
only allowed to make.
Their mom wants them to do. Play with your brother. Come on, yeah.
So, but yeah, and Sparklight's a really interesting. I love the art style of it, and it's if anyone's interested, my story's up on the site. But yeah, it's my first and also my favorite.
It's really great.
Yeah.
I had one of my favorite. One I'm going to tell is that I got a chance, and this was when Mark Cerny, I believe, was at Universal, and he was doing both Insomniac's Spyro the Dragon and Naughty Dog's Crash Bandicoot. I think both of them were going on at the same time.
Just a mascot maker.
So he was a mascot maker. Too? And I'm not 100% on that part of the facts, but he was involved, right, in both companies. Still is to this day. But one of the things that was fascinating is he gave a talk about how, I think this was maybe for Crash 2, maybe, talking about how engaging, to your point about Will Wright, about how quickly he wanted someone to jump again. How quickly that like he wanted a varied movement. And in a series, like how important it was to have this many different kind of things within this time space. Right. And like he was on a whiteboard, like drawing up all these things about like very hard, like, and it was funny because it's like in such an industry, and this is the first time I'd seen that, and such a thing that I always thought was like so much like art, right? You're like, oh, it's an art. You just like, oh, man, I feel it, man. There's a jump here, man. It's like, this is when you jump, right? that just hear someone say that, no, you can apply data and requirements to this and kind of like make a formula of fun, which I know sounds ridiculous that there is, and there really truly is, and he admitted that as well. But applying those kind of thought processes to how you create a game and the way you think about a game, and thinking about that when you create a level or when you look at a level, I thought was one of those talks. I didn't agree with everything he said. He's super smart, by the way, another genius. But it changed the way I looked at a lot of games. Right, and games that I had played in the past and loved, I go all the way back to Mario or Contra, or even when you look back to like the moment-to-moment play of like a Space Invaders or Pac-Man. I think all those things mattered, and I think I learned a lot in that one. If I could go back and record it, I would. You know what I mean, with time travel type things.
So that's the rise of the game designer, right? That's a relatively recent field of study, but it is really looking at through the lens of, okay, humans are going to play this. What kind of experience do we want to create? And, what are other examples that better created that experience that we can pull from?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's too, and that was happening before the story had really taken place in like gaming as well. Like this was like, in the years that followed, I would see like, I'm working on a story and we're trying to integrate the story into games and like how it like matters to what the design decisions that are being made. I mean, that's the crazy thing is we've watched game design grow. And by the way, I'd like to say, still continue to grow. I think that's one of the amazing things about games is that game developers every year, I'll go visit a developer 3 years later and I'll go like, these guys learned a lot. They may not know it, but they learned a lot from their last game and they're applying a lot of new things, and you watch the whole industry kind of grow and change the way that they engage things. And I mean that on all fronts. Even from simple mobile games, I think have gotten better at the way that they do things. You know what I mean? So it's a full spectrum, all the way to AAA, everything in between, right? Kind of things. So always interesting. All right.
One more thing on that. Kind of going back to Ed Boon and
does this have a lot to do with Majora's Mask?
Yeah, it does. So Mortal Kombat 11 came out, and I didn't play. No, I did a feature. I want to say 5 years ago now for us about the history of designing fatalities for Mortal Kombat, and talking to the team there about how they like figure out how do they like can create a fatality and like the things that go into like, all right, every fatality has to be like, I think they said 3 beats. So like there's 3 like main things that happen in every fatality, and like the way they decide what's too far, like what is a step too far, and like the goriness, or like basically like if Ed cringes when he sees it, he's like, all right, maybe that's a little too much, or just like it has to be like either really like visually over the top, or it has to be like hilarious, or else they just don't want to put it in there.
Yeah.
That was really enlightening, because like then you start looking at all the fatalities when like Mortal Kombat 11 comes out. It's like, oh yeah, that's the 3-beat thing right there, where it's like, all right, Cassie Cage does this, then she does this, and then she does that, and then that's the end. And you start looking at it through those lenses once you hear it from them.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, for sure. Okay. Next question. What game character is your spirit animal? Is basically the goal here. So, hey, Andy and crew, games are a really unique medium where you can really immerse yourself in another world, and oftentimes the main components of a world that ground it in the reality are thought-out, believable characters. Seeing people I know and characters of the game I play is one of my favorite things about the medium, and I've started to assign spirit characters, like spirit animals, to my friends in real life. My question to you is, what characters throughout gaming do you think best represent you as a person that you claim as your spirit character? This is from Ty. Thanks for the content from a vet student who spends tons of time studying and needs a lot of dialogue to listen to while I do it. So glad we could help. I kind of makes me think a little bit about like the Golden Compass kind of thing. Like, I don't know if you guys, His Dark Materials, you had like a daemon is like kind
of
a thing.
Persona.
A persona, there you go. I think it's funny. I do like the assigning, your friends to things. That was my favorite part about XCOM, was like making everybody my friends, and then like who lived and who died was one of the best parts of XCOM. But in this particular case, what video game character is your spirit animal? Nolan.
Well, it's a big question, of course, but I mean, I think Bayonetta would be really fun just to have around. I don't know. She's kind of bold and doesn't take any...
Would you like her to be full-sized or like a smaller, like Damon's, like
She is
a
like
spirit
8
animal, like
feet tall,
where
so yeah.
I mean, she'd be intimidating.
Yeah,
to
I guess
have
she
follow
could
you
carry
around
me
everywhere.
around. That would be fun. I don't know. But no, I think you'd have to have the full size.
The full size. It's
Yeah.
just like, it's just this badass following you around everywhere you go.
Totally, yeah.
I think it's a good choice, actually. Though I think people would be very scared to approach you and speak to you if you had her following you around with those 2 guns.
That's
Or 4
fun. I
guns,
don't know.
or-
I'm pretty gregarious. We can
Yeah, exactly.
we can work that out. We'll balance each other out. Yeah.
Dan.
I'm a big fan of like berserkers and like big dudes with clubs.
Okay.
So I'm gonna pick Havel the Rock from Dark Souls.
Oh, okay,
Just
gotcha.
this giant armored dude with a giant freaking club or dragon tooth, whatever, and just he doesn't have anything. He's gonna kill you if he hits you. But
You
that's the
too are
challenge.
intimidating, yes.
Yeah.
And you would have you want it to be giant. You just want to have a big giant following you around.
Yeah. I mean, I thought we were supposed to like put ourselves in.
Okay,
this,
put him.
but
Okay,
what I was
yeah,
thinking.
that's okay. That works. All right.
I'd take him follow me around though too.
Yeah,
I get a lot.
okay,
I get a
I-
lot of things done.
I always think of a spirit animal like someone who just like I don't know. Put it in like that kind of terms. But you're right.
I
Maybe
could go
that's
for a
who
little
you
mini
are.
Havel on
Who
my
you
shoulder.
are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just that sheer force, man. Like that's
That's
what
you.
I'm into.
Like you're a guy who like chooses what game he's going to play, no regrets, right?
Yeah.
He just keeps playing that game.
Exactly. I'm never gonna live that one down, am I?
No, I think I say that I'm mocking you out of like jealousy. I
wish I had that ability to just throw that switch.
This isn't mockery for just mockery's sake. How about you, Brian?
If we're talking something to just follow us around, I'd probably go something like a Charmander. Like
All right, yeah, gotcha.
he's cute and happy and
that's
but
you.
like no. That's
you-
just something I want to follow me around.
okay, all right.
But like he also won't hesitate to like burn you and your stupid little pet alive. So like
Oh wow,
He's good.
Wow.
Uh,
you
What
took it-
Poke-
you
what
went
Pokemon
dark.
does that happen in?
that's Charmander, man. And-
He's a
but, like,
killer. He's
if we're, like,
a
trying to-
murdering, fire-based
Yeah, and then he grows into a dragon.
lizard.
Yeah.
He's a lizard. He's
Not
a lizard, right?
actually a dragon.
Not actually
though,
a
sure.
dragon, but he looks like one. He's a dragon. Let's be real. If we're talking like putting ourselves in a character or a character in ourselves, like I'd like to say like
I mean, shouldn't the answer be the same?
I'd like to be like Lucio or something like that, but like I'm probably some like awkward weirdo like Sigma.
You get to pick your. You don't have to. you get to pick here. You get. If you want
I'm
to.
trying
If
to be
Lucio is
accurate.
your.
I mean, it's your own traits versus complementary traits is how
Yeah.
I see it.
Yeah. How about you, Alex?
So I'm a lovable giant. If you don't know me, I'm soft spoken, but or I guess not even that soft spoken, but I am not your stereotypical big man, and I think the best representation
Zangief.
for that is yeah, exactly.
Also, Bayonetta.
yeah, and I'm sure I'll catch flack for this, but I think Snorlax is a good one.
That's a good one.
He's he'll kick your butt when you need him to, but also like you can give him a hug, you can just chill, like he'll take a nap. That's kind of me in a nutshell.
Also, we just got back from lunch where you ate 75,000 berries.
Well, yeah, I was hungry.
For me, my answer is like I think I look at more as the thing that follows me around. That'd be a Metroid. You know what I mean? That's the kind of icon I use.
Baby
like, as
Metroid?
yeah, just like kind of follow me around. That'd be my thing. I don't know that I'd be a Metroid, but maybe just as a brain sucker, sure. Yeah, why not? Like I think that's representative. They don't have hands to play video games. Maybe that's a bad thing to want to be. But like I think that's my spirit animal, though. Metroid.
Okay.
I think that's what it is. All right. That's interesting. Interesting answers. Thank you. All right. So, hello, GI crew. Greetings from Kansas City. With the recent news of Sony not being at E3, I wanted to see what the panel's thoughts were. While I think E3 has some issues and companies are doing things their own way, such as the state of play, I was a bit surprised Sony decided not to participate in this year when they're launching the PS5. The marketing nerd in me says that making a massive mistake, as this is the biggest way to attract mainstream media attention to games. Another factor is MS will be at E3. So from the standpoint, it just seems like it's a mistake, or from what standpoint do you think it is or isn't a mistake, essentially? I'm sorry, I'm kind of correcting this on the fly. Is this remind anyone of Sony post PS2 going into PS3? Are they resting on their laurels from this gen too much, or do you agree with the decision? Thanks, Jared Barzee. So everyone caught up quickly. Like it came out that Sony was going to be at E3 this year. and they put out an official statement that they will not be at this year's E3. They
After
were not
skipping last year, yeah.
at not being last year's E3, and Microsoft attended last year's E3. Though to be clear, they attended it in their own theater, which is right next door, and they didn't have a booth on the floor at E3. So it always is weird to me when they once again come out and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna be there at E3 with all the bullets flying," and it's like, well, you didn't do it last year. So that kind of is one of those things that I think they're kind of taking it both ways because they're doing their own thing and having it be around E3. So
Yeah.
I don't know how that there's any judgment going either way there, but that is definitely the current state of things. Now that said, we already assumed, and coming from PlayStation 4, that Sony announced PlayStation 4 in like February, I think, sometime in New York. They did a New York event to announce the platform. And I think we all assumed, at least to some degree, that they were going to have some kind of event ahead of E3. We didn't assume that they would have the full reveal for these things at E3. And I don't even think Microsoft saying they're going to be at E3 means that that's going to be their full reveal either. I think there are still a lot of opportunities for a lot of events between now and then. So that is the playfield, just to kind of catch everybody up on that in general so that you know what's going on. Now let's hear from the panel on your thoughts on whether you think Sony skipping E3 is a good or bad decision, or anything just like general strategy, Sony thoughts on Sony.
Before we dive into that, last week on the podcast, Dan Tax sold us a dream of Microsoft and Sony just going head to head, going at each other. And I wanted that to be real life. And
yeah, that was a fun talk, actually. Because it is fun to have them be one after another.
Yeah.
And like, there's a bunch of stories in the past of like, oh, they announced this price point. We need to, have a different press release ready, and like that companies would make decisions within the hour between press conferences, and it gave it a certain energy. That was hard to deny, but those days are gone. The internet's changed everything.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm being selfish. That's what
yeah.
I wanted. But that's one of the greatest mic drop moments in gaming is when Microsoft announced the price for the Xbox One, and then this PS4, Sony came on stage right after and went $399 or whatever it was, and then just like walked off.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing that how much, and also too, by the way, as someone who's gone to all of them E3s, is that. The internet's definitely changed. Like you say to yourself, like, I could have watched all this from my hotel room, and while I wouldn't have played some of these games, I would have gotten a lot of information, maybe even more information than I would walking the show floor, which I think is one of those things that talks about the current E3 and what its challenges are. But Nolan, you're kind of like, you're a game dev, so you're in the industry, but you're also, let's say you consumer a little bit. What's your thoughts on E3 and these changes and what's gone on with Sony attending or not attending?
Yeah, well, I look forward to Sony's E3 Wired article. That should be great as an alternative. But I think absolutely in the recent years you don't kind of need to be at a consumer show.
You don't feel like you're missing anything.
Yeah, you
not
can
going.
see. Yeah. A lot of this stuff is online, and a lot of the trailers that you're getting in the press conferences are the same ones that they show online anyways. You can watch all of those online. So I think Nintendo kind of has both, right, where they just only have an online direct, and then they have their treehouse where people can go and play all the games that everyone's excited about. And I think that that's kind of what the other companies are trying to do. They wish they could do that.
You think they should emulate Nintendo more?
Yeah, I think that they should have the games there, but they don't necessarily need to have their on-site press conference.
Yeah. So would you say you wish then that Sony was going to be there and show more on those games during E3? Is that something you miss that you think is a loss?
I think that would be fun, at least to even if I can't be there, get to see other people's takes on it. And Nintendo streams the entire Treehouse stuff, and it's a lot of fun. Now,
what if Nintendo just said like, "Hey, August 5th, we're gonna stream our games all day, every day, but we're not going to E3." What would your reaction be?
I think that kind of be fine.
You'd be fine, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you're not going to get the same group of people coming through. Right. What is cool about having a conference is you get everyone in the same place.
Yeah.
And interactions that you don't normally see. But
do those come through from afar?
Totally.
They do?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Totally.
Oh, all right. Yeah. I mean, Anybody else? Dan?
I think it's a smart decision, and obviously one that they've got all the data for as well.
Yeah.
It's the times have changed, right?
Yeah.
Like, if these stories break, we're going to write them up anyway.
Yeah.
We don't have to be in a hall. We don't have to be at a press conference. They get complete control over the message tier. There's no chance of a slip up. There's no chance of, Genji 2, giant enemy crab situation. There's no demos they have to worry. There's nothing. They get complete control of everything they want to do. From their end, it's great. From our end, the industry has fundamentally changed the way that we get these reveals.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that we're frantically typing at our computer at the press conference. Everyone's getting the information at the same time anyway. And it's pretty clear that those marketing dollars are better spent however they're going to use them rather than being at E3.
So would you have liked to have seen Microsoft say, we're not going either?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because I think that they're doing, if they hedge it like they did last year and sort of not be at E3, but be at E3, they still gain that advantage, be like, oh yeah, we were at E3.
So you think that's still smart too? So you think both answers are smart?
I think
You're straddling a bit here.
No, because I think Microsoft being there but not really being there
Yeah.
is they keep that prestige of oh, we went to E3 even though they weren't really at E3, right?
Yeah.
They're just timing all around it and doing the thing on the side. That way they get that edge up over the competition, I suppose. In that fashion.
In that fashion?
So
Okay.
that how many marketing dollars is that worth to have that E3 presence over somebody, to win
Yeah.
to win the battle?
Yeah, it's an interesting because I'm just going to throw in a couple 2 cents here. One that is that in the past, the only thing that I think that E3 has done. By the way, I felt E3 has not been done a good job of who it's for. By the way, for a long time. By the way, as a
that's,
thing.
yeah, not to interrupt. That's completely when it was an industry show to where it is now. It's are you trying to be a PAX? What are you doing?
Yeah, what are you trying to do? So they're definitely they have a lot of issues they need to figure out. Is it a consumer show? Is it an industry show? And I think that's one of the things that I've always talked to game companies sometimes, and someone will be talking to me and they'll be like, "Oh, we're going to show this game in E3," and I'm like, "Why would you show that game in E3? You're going to get destroyed. There are going to be 25 games that are more talked about than yours." And this is, by the way, I think this is a cool game, by the way. But because you need to have 25 games on stage at whatever press conference, you end up being the 25th, and you're like, well, I'm going to get exposure that I wouldn't get anywhere. Which there might be data that says that yes, you did by being on Microsoft stage, you did reach more people than you would have. But it's a risk. It's a real risk because you could have a bunch of people have seen it and said garbage and moved on because they just saw the trailer for the greatest game ever, and then you follow it up, and it's probably not going to be as good because you're probably not spending as much money because you're the 25th most important game on that stage show, which benefits, Microsoft or Sony or Nintendo to say look at the breadth of things we have, but maybe doesn't benefit you. So I think there's a lot of nuance in that stuff that really has to be thought through in particular. And I think that I loved that battle of having 100 games go at it and it be a big giant battle royale. But I think it's hurting more games than it's helping games because the bigger games are going to get coverage, like you said, no matter what. So it is an interesting point. And I do think, to your point too, Nintendo has led the way a little bit with going to the Nintendo Directs, which seemed crazy at the time, but it definitely were ahead of their time.
Yeah, for sure. They get the complete control of the messaging. They get, like Dan said, the inability for a random slip up, oh, Doug Bowser said something stupid and stumbled all over himself. It's no, he just did another take, and that's all we ever saw.
Yeah.
I go back and forth on this, but I will say that it's clear that the returns that these publishers and developers get from going to E3 on the whole is diminishing. It used to be this huge, this is the only way we'll ever get to see this stuff before social media, before all these direct presentations were
they can all make a Twitch or YouTube account and stream it whenever they want.
Exactly.
Yeah,
If tomorrow CD Projekt Red was like, hey, we're going to stream the first 30 minutes of Cyberpunk, that would be bigger.
No one would watch that.
Nobody. Yeah, you're right. That would be bigger than 99% of the stuff, if not 100% of the stuff we'll see at E3 this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, just our access to information is so high and our demands around it are pretty high that it definitely does change it. But I will say, to your point, which I think is very valid, I do feel like it's diminished. I wish I had more data on it. I wish the ESE was more clear about it and who it was reaching and who it was going to. Like we said, who is it for? But that is the one time, I will say this still, and I don't know what the value is because maybe my parents don't play games, but it is the one time of the year they go like, oh, that E3 thing is happening. Like, that's the really important video game thing that happens. And they still talk, like, people outside the industry talk about it as like our Comic-Con, like as our, like, that is the stake in the ground that they know. And I feel like there's a value with that. And I don't know what that value is. I wish I understood more about what that value was or who it was for, but it does seem weird that we like have this thing that everyone knows, like literally our flag at the top of like Mount Everest, like this is the video game thing, and we're all kind of like, it's sliding away.
I mean, and don't get me wrong, I love E3. I love going to it every year, and like it's the one opportunity that we have to interface with a lot of these developers. Like it's the only opportunity that like any of us really have to like, oh, there's a Miyamoto interview today. One of us is going to go to that. Like we don't get that opportunity. The only other time I can think of since I've started at Game Informer that we've had an opportunity outside of E3 to interview Miyamoto was for our Breath of the Wild cover.
Yeah.
Other than that, like there are a select few developers that like that's the only time you will ever see them. Like we had Takashi Tezuka. Which
that's very true.
He never goes to anything. Like it's always Miyamoto.
It's a window to Nintendo that you don't normally get. There's 100% that's Nintendo's commitment to doing things at E3. But I will say this as like some perspective for anyone that hasn't been. Every E3, and I mean this like Sony in their heyday, Xbox in their heyday, the Nintendo booth is mobbed at a 2x factor at least versus any other booth. Now, part of it is their design. They definitely try to make it tight. Like Nintendo tries to make it look busy. But I've gone around the back and you'll go, there is a queue of 500 people back in this warehouse area waiting to play Luigi's Mansion 3.
Yeah.
You're just like, that's unbelievable, right? And so Nintendo, like, it's easy for Nintendo to see value in it because, like, their fans, like, I see people in the other hall are like walking places. In the Nintendo hall, when that door opens, they're running, right? Like, they're trying to get there. And Nintendo has created a certain need and desire to be there that is unknown. Now, that said, could Nintendo have a Nintendo Days event somewhere in Vegas that like people would go crazy? How about Nintendo
Space
World in
World.
Japan?
The Nintendo World seems like a great
Universal. People would go in droves to something like that.
Just do what Epcot used to do with Sega, where you could go and play games before they're out. Like people would lose their minds.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think Sony's right in walking away if they feel that they have games in a bright way to do it. I mean, that's the thing. Is like you have to understand what their strategy is. They think this is the way to strategize and show their games in the best light. You don't go there and you don't want to like fight the fight because they've said they want to be consumer centric. Then more power to you. It's the right call. But I do think it puts the onus on E3. E3's got to show that they're a thing, and the ESA has not done a good job of showing they're a thing or that they understand the vision of E3. And not Microsoft showing up. Not their stupid statement about what's going to go is going to save E3 if the ESA doesn't get off their butt and start thinking outside the box and make E3 worth going to as an industry.
And the other,
it's crazy because, like, you think about it, how things have changed. You can take the presentations or those cool things, like you can just make it happen when a person turns on their PS5. They just boom, here's a trailer for a new product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
that's the other wrinkle is we are getting new consoles this year. So is it wise to, I
Back
don't
off
know.
from
I don't
this
know
without- yeah.
if, Microsoft is going to have Series X there for people to try. But if Sony's not there to have people try the PS5, they have to do a lot more work in some cases just to...
Yeah, it's a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or is it a missed opportunity to let Series X looks better or worse? Do you know what I mean? Like that's the thing is it's a bet to some degree, right?
Yeah.
I feel like
And they're top dog right now, so they don't need to gamble at the moment.
yeah, I mean it's like you definitely are you leaving a clear runway for Microsoft
Yeah.
or not? But I mean let's be realistic. There are going to be a ton of PlayStation 5 events where they're going to talk and show and,
sure,
and
for
like
sure.
build it up. And like we never get to put them side by side anyway. Right, you just get to go check one out at one event and one out at a different event.
Yeah, and if I were a betting man, I would say their style direct, their PS Now or whatever
State of
it is,
Play.
State of Play. Yeah, I
PlayStation
would,
Direct.
Yeah, I would bet that comes out within, because I think it came out last year. It did a week before E3. I would imagine it comes close to E3 too. So I don't think they're going to sit on the sidelines, but it's just not going to be the conventional way.
Yeah.
And that to me is the wildest thing is that if there was going to be a year they were going to be there, it's console launch year.
It would have been here. Yeah.
The fact that they're drawing the line in the sand now, I mean, it speaks volumes about their choice and the data and decision making that went into this.
Yeah, and it basically says they're going. If you're not going to E3 this year, you're never going to E3
Right.
again. Right?
Exactly.
Like
Right, exactly.
That's an easy
Yes.
read, right? I mean, unless like management change at Sony or something, or by the way, or if the ESA changes E3 and makes it relevant. I mean, that's the kind of change that they're expecting and they demand from E3. And by the way, I'm thrilled that Sony's demanding it. Right? Like because I want change from E3. I want change from the ESA. Those are things I've wanted for probably a decade from them, right? And so I'm glad to see, they don't care if Andy McNamara doesn't show up, but they care that Sony doesn't show up, and so that forces change, and that's good, right? And so that's exciting. Well, we can talk about that for a long time. I can make fun of. I can talk about E3 and new consoles.
Topic, yeah.
I mean, for a long, long time. I do think. I do. One thing I will say about the video stuff, just because we're on the subject, I just want to get this in here before we leave. I appreciate the videos that are pre-recorded, but we live in a streaming world. They do so many practice runs of all these things. Like, they can do it live. I like the personality of live versus the pre-recorded. I know everyone loves the Nintendo Rex, blah, 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 and but there's something to the personality that tells me something about the people there and tells me something about the company. I do think Nintendo does a great job with those, and they do some funny humor stuff in it, but they do ultimately feel stale.
They do,
right? And the PlayStation ones they're doing now feel stale as well.
They do feel stale, but I get on their end of things, it's like there's no chance of any error, right?
Yeah.
You get everything right, every date, everything is completely correct, just the way you want it. And yeah, it sucks for us because it is stale. You're right,
Yeah.
but.
I miss the pageantry of like the orchestra playing God of War when they were first revealing the sequel. Like, I miss all that.
Yeah, or just like when the developer would come out and the developer gets a chance to stand on stage and show their game, right? Not in front of a camera, in front of an audience, in front of people that love their game, and like you can see it in their face. Like, you can see the reaction. You can see you can see tears of joy. Like, those kind of things don't happen in a pre-recorded event.
Yeah,
those
they
things
don't,
happen when you have the people in the place, when it's a moment. And I like the moments.
It's like the Keanu thing last year, Microsoft stage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I remember one of the last Sony press conferences that there was. I mean, I guess there were probably two more after this, but when they announced Final Fantasy VII Remake and Shenmue 3 back to back, like these two games that people have been requesting for probably like 20 years each.
People went crazy.
And I mean, there's no way to replicate that in like a pre-recorded thing. Like, just the feeling in the crowd was just insane.
Yeah, on a pre-recorded thing, it would be like, and also coming, Shenmue 3.
It's completely sterile.
Yeah.
I agree. And I wonder if somehow they'll get a way to meet in the middle. Maybe we can make things a little more interesting than the canned recordings, but at the same time, not have to do E3. I don't know.
I mean, by the way, I have a million ideas on how to make any of those events better, but I cost a lot. So give me a ring.
Podcast at GameInformer.com.
Next question is, this is an interesting one, which I may not have gotten exactly what our friend here was looking for, but this is from Cody from West Des Moines, Iowa. Resident Evil 3 comes out soon, and Capcom apparently made a physical nemesis. Or maybe, just basically like personifying evil. Let's say Game Informer gets a museum for monsters. You call it the Monster Closet, which I love. So you get the Monster Closet. What are the top 5 monsters you display in this museum? Which we've done a museum type thing before. I like doing these kind of like, let's come up with the top 5 monsters. I like the twist here, which I'm adding to this. Is that it's kind of like a Resident Evil game where you go into the Game Informer Museum and you have these 5 monsters chasing you.
Or only one of them
terrifying.
is real and the other 4 are wax.
Ooh, look at this. All right. So like... Or it changes, or like whatever decisions you make switch between the various monsters. And we could build a whole game design document around it. But what it is you're trapped in a big giant building, and these are the things that would come after you. What are our choices for monsters? What are our monster choices?
I like the idea that this is like put right next to our grocery store or whatever, or our hardware store. It's GI Street.
We are going to have a GI town sooner or later. We'll make it in Legos, or someone can make it in Legos for us, and we can have our
Sims
rock
4.
on display, and all the other horrible lists that we've created. Nolan, you're the man of the hour. Let's hear. Do you have a monster that you think belongs? Or like, by the way, we are not just we're just adding monsters to the list, we will determine the top 5 at the end.
Okay. We'll rank later. Got
Yes.
it. So I guess my favorite horror game is PT, so maybe we can get Lisa on there.
All right.
But that's pretty good. You got your other Silent Hills monsters, Pyramid Head.
Pyramid Head.
Mm-hmm.
He's definitely a good one.
It's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are the first 2, I guess, that come to mind.
I'm weird. I think back to Rampage, and I always just like the
giant monkey.
giant monkey,
Yeah.
the King Kong. I don't know why. I just think it's a classic monster, right? I mean, it's a monster that's been going for ever. I don't know. I think about that. And by the way, the movie was so bad, but like,
I didn't even bother with it.
Yeah, I don't know. That's one I think of.
Let's get it in
If
there.
you
Throw it on
want
the
to
list.
talk iconic monsters that you may not even think of in terms of like something that would be scary to chase you, but totally would be, what about Bowser?
Okay, yeah, he's a weird.
Bowser
Yeah.
would be, in real life, that would be terrifying.
Yeah.
Especially because in real life, he would have that clown kind of, I think, like he would feel clownish to me, I think, in real life. Like that it would be not only terrifying that he's like kind of this big lizard, but that his coloring to me makes him
I mean, he's
kind
a
of terrifying.
snapping turtle with horns, and he can breathe fire,
Yeah, he's terrifying. There's no doubt.
and he stands upright.
Yeah, which no one wants to see that.
But if you'd rather go with a scary entry, what about Death Claws from Fallout?
That's a good one.
So Dan, what do you want?
I'd like Gurman from Bloodborne. So
Gurman.
he's the canonical. He's the final boss in most playthroughs.
Oh, okay,
The
gotcha.
big giant crazy dude with
Yeah,
the scythe.
I remember that. Yes.
He'd be pretty scary. But alternatively, the other Bloodborne guy, the Father Gascoigne, would also be cool because he turns into a werewolf. So you got 2 angles covered there.
Yeah, that guy, I actually had more trouble killing that father. I died to him more than I did the final boss.
Everybody does. He is like the filtration system for Bloodborne. I don't know why. I can't wait the next time I talk to Miyazaki so I can ask him about the design decisions that went into that.
Well, I mean, yeah, no, but I think that's the thing is that was so interesting about that game. Just to go on a tangent, was that it took so. I was like, why does it hate me so much? Why does it make the first 5 hours of this game the most torturous hours of the entire game? And it's like a 40, 50 hour game. And it said the first 10% is going to be the most miserable 10% of our experience.
I have never understood that myself. I don't get it.
And it is totally true. And I was so happy when I beat that guy. I was so happy. I started doing laps to get experience to get through that. I was just like,
Whatever
I had
you have to
level
do,
up.
right? Yeah.
It was pathetic.
If we're talking Bloodborne monsters, we want to throw an amygdala in there. The big guys you can only see
The
with
brain creature.
Oh,
Yeah.
40
yeah.
insight.
Yeah, there's
We could basically take all the bosses.
there's a ton of
Every
really cool.
Soulsborne monster, yeah.
And if we wanted to get something cute in there too, which I'd say iconic, the Dragon Quest slime, I think would be just fun to have in
that's
there.
good, yeah.
One.
That's
We have a bunch of pocket monsters we can draw from.
There's a few of those, I
One or
think.
two.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think like there's got to be a monster from Dead Space, right? Isn't there?
Just
Is there any-
everything.
The
Just
xenomorph, maybe the baby with
Yeah,
the
I feel
3
like-
tendrils that come up. I don't know.
Like
Yeah,
the
that-
face hugger?
Ooh,
Or
Facehugger's a good
Facehugger,
monster.
Yeah, that's a great monster.
They should just do the face, or just Alien. I think
Yeah,
it's
the xenomorph,
Alien
yeah.
because it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Alien Isolation is a
xenomorph,
video
yeah.
game.
So
Just one's a baby, right?
if we want to go back to Pokemon, like you mentioned, when I asked Masuda and Omori about which was is the most dangerous Pokemon to encounter, they said Beware. Which,
Oh, yeah.
if you think about it, it's just this giant, like cutesy
But it's
cartoon
a-
bear.
It's a stuffed animal.
But he grabs you and he just destroys your spine with a bear hug.
If you've
his
seen the
Pokédex
newer Pokemon anime, there's no more blasting
Rocket
off again
blasting
for
off,
Team
yeah.
Rocket. Yeah, it's just a Beware coming by and grabbing them and running off every episode.
Yeah, but in the Pokédex entry, it literally says many trainers have left this world after Beware has crushed their spine.
Oh, man.
I just want to point out that whenever anyone is like, this Pokemon character is terrifying, I have a hard time buying it. Just from my own perspective, it's like, because I think they do that with everyone. They're like, it's a little cute guy, but beware. Like, I feel like isn't that their MO for everyone?
No.
They do want to make sure they're all friendly, but there's a balloon that kidnaps children.
Yeah, it's a
so-
balloon that, and his Pokédex entry literally says like he lifts children off to the afterlife, and it says he dislikes heavy children.
That is funny. That is funny. Any other monsters?
So picture you're on a transatlantic flight and it goes down all of a sudden, and you're stranded in the middle of the ocean.
Is this Twilight Zone?
I mean, like, I don't really care after I keep going.
You descend into an underwater utopia, and one of the first things you see is a big daddy. I don't know about you guys. I would just lay down and die. I wouldn't fight. Like, and there's such an iconic style about that.
Yeah.
That monster.
Yeah,
needs
it's
to
a
be
good
in
pick.
there.
It's a great monster.
I'm gonna fight it if I'm gonna swim all the way from the plane into that, into the whatever the hydraulic
Lighthouse.
lift down there.
I think it's a bathysphere.
A bathysphere.
Yeah,
that's
what
right.
it is. Yeah.
I was watching some of that because they did it on Awesome Games Done Quick. They were doing a speed run.
On Bioshock.
Bioshock, yeah. which was-
How long was it?
I don't remember how long it was. I had to like eat dinner in the middle, and I came back to watch it. But then I saw the highlight where the guy who was running it did a mod because he was playing it on PC, so it like did a fake blue screen of death, like right in the middle of the
Oh.
run. It was
That's pretty funny.
brilliant, by the
Pretty
way.
good.
Good troll.
Yeah, it was a very good troll. I also watched a Outer Worlds run. Like that one was 14 minutes.
That
Wild.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
Sorry, just a little shout out to AD. Awesome Games Done Quick because they're so good. They're a lot of fun.
They are.
Any other monsters?
I have a question for you, Andy.
Yes.
What World of Warcraft monster would you throw in there?
What World of Warcraft? I can never. This is my thing with World of Warcraft. They all melt together.
They do.
I can never remember the
They do.
names of anything. Right.
That's fair.
But I would think it would be something like who's the test for all the Sims? Like from the Plague Wing. That's the ones I think of. It's just like it's kind of a Frankenstein
So
monster with
yeah.
like green stuff shooting out of it.
The one with the positive and negative energy.
Yeah, kind of thing. I mean, that's
With
the
giant
kind of stuff I
Frankenstein
think
guy?
of
Yeah.
because it's like picking a dragon's kind of boring.
Yeah, but Dragon is boring.
Could get some Murlocs in there.
Could you get Murlocs?
Yeah, Murlocs are pretty mean.
They're hilarious. See, the thing is, they're like Jawas to me. They're like kind of like comic relief rather
Yeah.
than truly terrifying.
Until they
you know
kill
what I
you.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
but until they kill you. But I don't usually look at them as like terrifying. I guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
What if there are two of them standing on, one on the other shoulder?
Yeah, then they'd have a trench coat and be like trying to buy beer or smokes or something. You know what I mean? Like,
can see that happening.
it still doesn't terrify me.
What about if you want to talk iconic with menacing? What about a creeper?
Yeah, Creeper's
Sure.
good. Yeah, Creeper's good.
Throw one in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the witch from Left 4 Dead.
Oh, that's a good one.
Nothing
That is
filled
good.
me
Yeah.
white with dread.
She was
Yeah.
she was
Definitely
terrifying.
horrifying.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a
Yeah.
really good one. Okay, let's see if we've got some missing things here. So, Creeper, Witch from Left 4 Dead, Big Daddy, a Xenomorph from Alien, Lisa, Pyramid Head. God, my handwriting is awful. Bowser, Death Claws, Slime, Amygdala, Gurman.
Yeah, Gurman.
Is that the right?
We can go with Gurman or Gascoigne. I don't care.
And like a King Kong like creature from Rampage, giant monkey.
I like the idea that all these are terrifying
name is-
creatures are chasing us around, and then the monkey comes up.
And
That could be. That's really
Is his
scary.
name George? Is that?
Yeah, George. Oh, that's. I think
Yeah,
you're
that's right,
right.
yeah.
I think you are correct. Good.
What about
George,
good pull?
George and Lizzie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going to one of
Delivered.
your favorite series of all time. What about Ridley?
Yeah, Ridley's good, but he just kind of falls in the dragon thing for
Sure.
me, which I'm like, I'm looking for more of a I like a monster. I mean, I like the thing like in the Nemesis kind of thing.
Why don't we throw Mr.
For our
X
monster.
Mr. X in there?
I mean, or Mother Brain. It's pretty.
Yeah, Mother Brain's, but I don't know if I see Mother Brain. I guess it would be pretty freaky to see Mother Brain.
It would be pretty freaky.
Then couldn't you just run out of the
But
room?
yeah, I'm trying to think of like for me, I kind of like the idea of things that like when you're because it's kind of I'm putting a little game design in this that
You
you're
want
in
them
our
to chase you.
Yeah, I want it to be like I want it to feel kind of haunted housey.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? At least in my head, like in this Game Informer block weird world we're building. So I don't know why I'm putting weird, worthless constraints on this. By the way, I understand that, and I'm well, but I kind of feel that way. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
an alien to me, I see an alien like that's scary. You know
sure.
what I mean? Like it's very easy. Like Mother, you're like I don't. Is that scary? Is that just like another life form? You don't really know it's scary until you engage it. Like
Sure.
I like
Space
the idea.
pirates, then.
Yeah, you know what I mean. I like something you see and you're like, that's terrifying. I need to run from it. Right? It makes a crazy noise. I need to run from it. That's the way I'm thinking of it.
I mean, yeah, the space pirates from Metroid Zero Mission when you don't have your suit.
Oh yeah, that
Yeah.
crawl after you.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are kind of horrifying.
Yeah, those do look. They look what they're like insects.
Yeah, they're like humanoid insects.
Yeah. But let's see. So what do we like here? I like Big Daddy and the Witch from Left 4 Dead. I think
do
you're kind of
too.
like 100% in,
The
right?
Witch is a
Like-
slam dunk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or is the Big Daddy too easy? Am I being too
No,
easy on the
no,
Big
no,
Daddy?
no,
Big
it's
Daddy-
good.
Big Daddy's pretty scary.
Big Dad, yeah.
Okay. All right.
I say those
You
two
get
are.
that trope
those
going.
two are slam dunks, right? I feel like Pyramid Head's maybe my
Pyramid
next
Head,
favorite
yeah.
on the
Yeah,
next one
he's
there, right?
gotta be
I
in
mean,
there.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the icon.
I think so.
Yeah.
Right? So that's 3.
Yeah.
This is a pretty scary place with the Big Daddy witch from Left 4 Dead.
Even one of those.
Death
Pyramid
claws.
Head.
I'm saying death claws are just cripplingly horrifying.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Have you
gotta
ever
tell
played
you-
a Fallout
In real
game?
life?
yeah.
What
I'm not
do you think,
feeling it.
Nolan? Do you think they're terrifying? Are you a Fallout guy?
I've played a little bit of Fallout. Yeah, they're, I don't know. I think by 3 they're just kind of everywhere.
Yeah.
They're kind of normal enemies, but
So okay, all right. So let's
maybe, you know, Death Claws in Fallout 1 are pretty scary.
well, we don't have to decide. Well, let's put it against that. What about Alien Xenomorph?
I feel like it's a movie villain first, though.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
you
I'll
know?
give you that.
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
Can we
All
do
right.
one of the necromorphs from Dead Space?
That's what they were called. I couldn't remember.
I couldn't remember either. I like Dead Space. I mean, they were good.
They're on the list.
I would say that needle that you put in your eye
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God.
is the most terrifying thing in that series. But you can't really be
But you
chased
can't,
by
yeah.
a needle.
How about King
Sure you
Leoric
can.
from
I guess
Diablo
like
2?
you're like on heroin. But do you like Necromorphs? Or is that-
Skeleton King from Diablo 2?
Skeleton King from
Or
Diablo
the
2?
Butcher. Or the Butcher.
The Butcher?
Those are both
The Butcher-
iconic.
yeah, the Butcher's
When you
good.
go into those rooms in those games, that's a pants crapping moment.
What about weird robot one? What about GLaDOS?
Not scary.
Not
due to
going to
the-
chase you, but yeah.
If you're in a building where she can access anywhere in the building, she'll chase you.
Yeah.
It's true.
Spoiler free. Did anybody have any like GLaDOS vibe from the newest Star Wars movie at any point? You don't have to. No spoilers.
Totally. Yes.
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 Yeah. Okay.
I know
yeah.
what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Okay. Just wanted to ask that question quick.
Oh yeah.
So let's we have 3. We just need 2 more. Who has got one that they really want to champion? Gurman?
What's left?
Gurman? Is Gurman?
I mean, he takes
Freaky?
he represents death, sort of like, he's got the giant scythe, and he's pretty scary. I guess not. I'm what he's up against. I'm not like sold on him, but like,
Yeah.
what else do we have?
I think Nolan gets to put one on.
Yeah,
Nolan
got the
brought
Big
up
Daddy.
Pyramid Head.
he's
Yeah.
got the
Oh,
big
that's
daddy and the
one on,
pyramid.
Yeah, he already has one on. I mean, he's leading the list here. Lisa. So what exactly is Lisa?
She's just that. I think her name's Lisa, but she's the ghost that appears behind you and then in all the corners and everywhere. I don't know. She's pretty freaky.
Pretty freaky. Other people? I mean, I got bored of that.
I mean,
game.
do we have teleportation technology in this? In your
You
brain
could.
when when
it's
they're
like
running
supposed to be-
around, she
supposed to
can
be
appear
scary,
in front of you.
right?
Yeah.
Giant monkey. The giant monkey seems out of
I have
place.
a super creepy one, but it's super deep cut that no one here is gonna know.
What is that?
It's from Fatal Frame series, like the crooked neck woman who like walks on all fours with her head looking at. It's really, really freaky, very Japanese horror kind
Yeah.
of thing. And she just scares you by falling down. It's awesome.
Kind of like the Ring kind of thing.
Yeah, it's in that same vein.
Yeah.
Or like the lickers and.
Oh,
Resident
that's a good
Evil.
one too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the liquors are good, and
They kind
those,
of fall down and yeah.
those things are scary.
Yeah.
Those things are definitely scary.
The
Yeah, they're scary.
zombies in or re-deads in Zelda are horrifying as
A
well.
good one.
Yeah. And we didn't say clickers from Last of Us, did we?
clickers in The Last of Us.
I think we should add that one.
Yeah, I think that
It's
almost a
also
slam
the,
dunk.
It's just like having zombies.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they were interesting.
The noises,
All right,
man.
all right.
There's the Wendigos in Until Dawn.
Those are
are
scary, but those are also based in mythology, right?
That doesn't mean we can't
Everything's
use them.
based in
Yeah,
mythology.
but-
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like liquors and clickers.
All right.
It makes it easier.
Let's do it.
I'm sold on the presentation of that alone.
Liquors and clickers, baby. It'll just be like its own
Print
thing.
it.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right. So our list: liquors and clickers, and witchers from Left 4 Dead 2. I tried; it didn't work. Big Daddy and Pyramid Head. I mean, that's a scary
Sure.
place.
That's a solid list. Yeah.
that's
That's scary.
I mean, that's a place you go like. Yeah,
I'm afraid.
Yeah. Bring extra underwear for that visit. You're gonna need it.
Or just don't go there because that would be
That would be,
horrifying.
and also it doesn't exist. There's
Not
that other
yet.
part. Doesn't
Not yet.
exist.
Not yet.
It doesn't exist
Not
yet.
in Lego
Well, it
form
exists
yet.
in your mind.
Yes, exactly. Well,
We
you
got
know,
some Silent
Most
Hill.
powerful place.
well,
where
when,
things can
when the
exist.
next game from Up at Night Studios is a monster house with 5
Yeah. Yeah.
inspired monsters,
Patent
with,
pending, yeah.
exactly. Then we know where that came from. We know where that came from. So that is it for community emails. thank you again. Always fun. I like talking about stuff and games. So thank you all panel for coming. Thank you especially Nolan. Your giving to Extra Life is so amazing, and I can't thank you enough. I think it's one of those things that we do, and it's an opportunity for us to do and give back. And I always feel like we're not doing enough to give back to people. And I think the video game industry as a whole and people that play video games have done so many charitable and amazing things. And I'm always amazed and astounded by that. And not just you and your generosity, but the generosity of everyone out there. So I want to make sure I thank you for doing that. And I'm so glad you came and joined us on the show and came to Minneapolis. And I want to thank everyone out there who's ever given any money, especially let's talk about right now, Australia, the fires in Australia. Go give money in some way, shape, or form to the people of Australia right now. They really got hit hard. I want to make sure that we go out there and support them. There's lots of ways to find that online. Please go and do that to kind of continue to give forward, because loving games is really, really important. But there's things that are actually bigger than games, and we need to remember that. So thank you all for being on the show. Thank you for coming out.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was fun.
Of course. It's great to hear your perspective on games. I'm so excited you're making games as well. That's super cool. So send in your questions to podcast@gameinformer.com, and we'll see you next week.